Are they all on? He's all on.
Glad to be alive.
That we're not starting at normal.
We want to chat.
Are we good? Hi, everyone. I think we're ready to get started.
Go ahead.
Is it working? Use my gavel.
Is the sound?
Kelsey got that for me. I think we're ready to get started. The time is 6:22 p.m. and the board has returned from executive session. Thank you to our interpreter, Jocelyn. Jocelyn, would you please share the interpretation instructions with our participants? And then we can turn on the interpretation function.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you all for joining us. In order to ensure all families are able to access their meeting in the preferred language, we were providing simultaneous interpretation in English and Spanish today. Please press the globe at the bottom of your computer screen and select your preferred language. If you are watching on a phone, press 3 dots at the bottom right of your screen and then select your preferred language. If you choose Spanish, be sure to mute original audio option. Thank you. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Para garantizar que todas las familias puedan acceder a esta reunión en su idioma preferido, hoy brindamos interpretación simultánea en inglés y español. Presione el globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla de su computadora y seleccione su idioma preferido. Si está viendo en un teléfono, presione los 3 puntos en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y luego seleccione su idioma preferido. Si elige español,
okay, thank you.
Asegúrese de seleccionar la opción silenciar
order.
audio adicional.
Our
Gracias.
next agenda item is opening celebrations and updates by our Superintendent, Dr. Rodriguez.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Just a few quick updates since our last board meeting. The first is that the 5th episode of the podcast is available on YouTube and Spotify. And this month, our bilingual specialist, Cristina Vargas, and I were joined by Chief Park and Markham to talk about the Learning Acceleration Plan. Relatedly, we also launched a Learning Acceleration Plan FAQ on our website, and we hosted a webinar earlier this week, which is already live on the FAQ page. So just wanted to invite folks to check that out. If you haven't had a chance to, we have a survey that's linked there in search of additional feedback. But again, that we just invite you all to send our way. Quick shout out to the Teacher Advisory Council. As many of you know, and as we do so religiously every first Friday of the month at 7 a.m., our team, including Chiefs Bean, Markham, and Park, and I met with our teacher representatives from each of our 12 district-run schools, and we discussed success in our crew opening, specifically thinking about strategies and outcomes. And then we spent the majority of the time discussing the Learning Acceleration Plan, getting some feedback from them. Also recently, I was interviewed by a group of seniors from Roaring Fork High School. So just a shout out to them for a project they're working on in their English 4 class. Their questions were mostly inquiries about my experiences as a Latino leader, including some of the challenges related to race that I've experienced and my journey to becoming our superintendent. Recently, I had the opportunity to join Director Fairbanks and our culturally and linguistically diverse education team at each of our high schools for their annual program reviews. We learned a lot about the strengths of each program and identified some great questions and ideas for next steps, including that we ensure students are seeing pathways to the seal of biliteracy much sooner than once they're in high school. And then just a quick note on UPK registration. As you all know, our team has persisted through some challenges with the system specifically, but we've already hosted several well-attended in-person registration days in partnership with the Family Resource Center, our nursing team, the Mountain Family Health Centers, Safe and Abundant Nutrition Alliance, Raising a Reader, and local independent preschool programs. The registration days are organized by our ECE business coordinator, Farida Rodriguez, our ECE instructional facilitator, Lori Brumba, and each of our school-based ECE program directors and staff. And then around student engagement, I just want to shout out all of our students across the district, but especially our high school students. So earlier today, I had the opportunity to meet with all of my student advisory councils at Glenwood Springs High School. So all 4 went to Glenwood Springs High School and we met together. And our students always just give me really great hope for our future. Also, we had a lot of students, as you know, competing at the top level in mock trial, wrestling, men and women's basketball, hockey, and of course, our seniors are currently completing their capstones. So thank you to all of you for all of your hard work this semester. And then just the last thing that I'll plug here is our IBB end of year meeting. If you weren't able to view our public broadcast of the end of year meeting, you can still watch it back on YouTube, but I warn you, it's 10 hours long. And I'm just very proud of the work we were able to accomplish as a district and with the RFCEA team. You'll hear, of course, a more thorough set of recommendations from our IBB team next. Thank you.
Thank you. The next business in order is a presentation from IBB representatives on their 22-23 proposal.
We could get a rep from each of the subcommittees join the team, that'd be great.
All right, thank you for having us here tonight to present our final IBB proposal for the 22-23 school year. As we mentioned before, certified IBB is where we come together as a collective representing certified teachers, the district represented by certain executive team members and members of the board to find common interests and solutions to those interests. The first subcommittee and recommendations we'll go over involve teacher compensation. My name is Nathan Markham. I'm the CFO. I was on the subcommittee. I'm joined by Heather Wilson.
Yep, I teach special education at Crystal River.
We had additional teachers, Adam Carballera, Howie Kuhn, Sarah Casaletto, the assistant principal at Glenwood Springs Middle School. Who am I forgetting?
Rob Norville.
And Rob Norville, president of RFCEA. Oh, they're listed right there. So a persistent interest we've had is coming up with pay for extra duties. Teachers are much more than teachers. They participate in all sorts of after school, before school, and weekend activities that extend their time far beyond contract time. So we're proposing at beginning next school year, 23-24, there's a separate budget of $50 per student per school. The overall cost for the district is $250,000. That's going to be funded from next year's certified teacher allocation of our new recurring revenues. And what that will do, we'll set mandatory rates for certain activities such as overnight trips at $150 a night, additional admin on duty. So particularly acute at high schools where they have a lot of after school athletics, events, plays, dances that allows someone else to step in as the admin. And then recommended rates as a place to start to begin coming up with stipends, hours times rate gives a stipended amount.
So for guest teacher rates, the guest teacher coordinator has expanded the pool greatly, which is a big success, and added PD and other onboarding measures to treat guest teachers as the essential professionals that they are. We discussed, well, we were able to increase the rate for guest teachers with the mill levy override to $150 per day, which is on par with our comparison districts. And Nathan did some exploration for us and has agreed to explore further moving this to $175 by using unused sub monies. So this is still in the works for the guest teacher increase. We will likely have this as an interest next year as money for the building subs, which is a really an important position in our schools, will be going away because this is ESSER funded.
Thank you, Heather. Heather, you want to take this one as well?
Sure, yeah. I should have let you do the last one. So for there was a lot of interest around sub coverage and absorbing students when we put out our survey, and came up time and time again. So we did a lot of work with this and decided to recommend that any teacher who absorbs students when a teacher or a paraeducator is absent and a guest teacher is not able to fill the role will be compensated by dividing the daily guest teacher rate evenly among those teachers involved for that coverage for the specific hours of the absence. And in addition, a lot of teachers said that they are missing a lunch or a planning period and not being compensated. So certified teachers who forego a planning or lunch in order to cover a class in lieu of a guest teacher will be compensated. We recommend at the hourly rate of BA step 1 for a certified teacher, which for next year would be $34 an hour.
Thank you, Heather. So the next item here, there was some confusion around district employees, particularly certified staff acting as athletic coaches. In some instances, they were being asked by the building to take paid leave in order to go act as a coach. So it's sending out a clarifying message to all, both central staff and buildings that certified staff who act as district coaches do not need to take paid leave from their regular position while they're on coaching duty. We want to encourage certified staff to participate in student lives outside of the classroom. So just making that clear on how that should work. And the last one and the biggie here is the certified teacher salaries. Our goal last year with the MLO was to get as close to $50,000 as we could. We did that through using one-time funds, and this year we're fortunate to have enough recurring funds to move on a permanent basis our beginning BA step 1 salary to $50,000. I think this is a huge win for the district and for RFCEA. The beginning teacher salary has gone up by over $8,000. I think it's 23% in the last 2 years, which is excellent work. Including the cost of living step from the fall, the average teacher salary this year will be 9%. So next up is the health benefits. I'm here presenting with Begonia Platt, who is our interim director of HR. Every year as part of IBB, we review health benefits. Every 5 years, we do some sort of RFP or deeper dive. A committee made up of employees, local healthcare practitioners, and national health experts have met regularly throughout this year, and even going back to last year. It's been about an 18-month-long process. The Health Benefits Committee recommendation after a deep dive and exploring multiple different options, putting out an RFP where we got multiple bids, which is encouraging. Neighboring school district went out for bids recently and didn't get any back, I think. But the committee recommendation is to change the benefits broker and provider from Willis Towers Watson and CBT, and move that business to Think Health plus Alchemy. More information on the change and coverage option will be provided. Coming up, here's a comparison of health benefits. Willis Towers Watson and CEBT, those are plans we know. We're very familiar with them. They're safe, they're comfortable. Think Health, we have plans similar to CEBT, but we get to design them. We have control over those benefits and what we can offer, as opposed to taking the plans that are just given to us by CEBT. Under CEBT, there's a large national network with providers that we currently use. It's United Healthcare. Under a change, we've moved to Cigna, which is also large and national. It actually offers 300,000 more providers than United Healthcare. Currently, copays range from $50 to $75, depending on the service. That's an option that we can set. Again, they're self-designed plans. There's an option for $0 copays for primary care, specialty care, urgent care, et cetera. There's currently a very popular no cost to staff marathon clinic. We can partner. Marathon as yet another partner in the overall scheme of things. We can partner with Marathon or similar for an employee clinic. And just as on copays for prescriptions, we can offer $0 generic prescriptions as well as a $0 option for all others. So under Willis Towers Watson, the risk is minimized by CBT trust members and stop loss insurance. Under the new plan, we would budget at 125% and budget our own stop loss insurance. So we have a fixed cost for the year. Under our current plan, the savings are kept by CBT, occasionally rebated to us. Under Think Health Alchemy, which is a self-funded model, all savings are returned to the district. The plans designed by CBT, they're for all trust members and not specific to our district. Under the new model, plans designed by our district staff for our district staff. It's more flexibility. We can respond in real time. If you think about a self-managed investment portfolio, we can make changes as opposed to waiting for an outside managed fund to make those changes. We can do that in real time with data that we're being given. We'll have better insight into de-identified data to work toward better health outcomes. Again, that's more real time on a month-to-month basis that we can update and make changes to make sure we're achieving optimal outcomes with our health coverage and the health of our employees. Currently, CBT's customer service is well regarded for users. If we offer same under Think Health, we'll be able to offer the same service plus a single point of contact for our members. The same no-cost mental health via Triad will be offered, as well as unlimited on-demand virtual visits. This was an important point for the Health Advisory Committee. Mental health particularly has been so in demand. So this is a better benefit that we could offer. And again, our maximum total exposure is fixed under Think Health and Alchemy, just as it is with Willis Towers Watson. So the Health Advisory Committee, after meeting and voting, was unanimous in its decision to recommend a change to Think Health plus Alchemy as the district's health benefits provider.
Thank you. So our subcommittee addressed the interests of teacher workload and professional development. I have with me Alicia Grimes, who's on the committee, as well as Autumn Rivera, Director Teitler, Principal Bayardo, Nina Asher, myself, and Stephanie West. And the first issue we addressed was the amount of teacher workload specifically that takes to complete and report cards and prepare for conferences. Some context for that the board is probably aware of is that this year there was a transition from semesters to trimesters for our elementary and our middle schools, but the calendared work days were not shifted. And so those calendared work days actually still worked all right for our high schools because they were at the end of the semesters in December and May, but they did not adequately support our elementary and middle teachers who had trimester grades. And so we're addressing that specific issue. So our recommendation is to add a non-contact day at the end of trimester 1 and another one at the end of trimester 2 for 2 reasons. And one is to provide the time that is necessary at the time when report cards are sent or in preparation for that time for teachers to prepare and send home report cards, but also to allow some flexibility with PD time as well. One of the considerations that we are also addressing with the addition of 2 non-contact days for students is to make sure that we do at least meet or exceed the instructional minute minimums. And so we're addressing that with our schools currently as we consider the schedules for next year. The other piece is that this addition of the 2 additional non-contact days for students does not extend the teacher contract, which will remain at 185 days, but does reduce the student contact days from 174 days to 172. This is actually this is a mock-up of what it would look like. So you can see that the additional date is November 10th. That's the end of trimester 1. For elementary middle schools, it would be a work day for inputting grades ahead of the time when grades are sent home. For high schools, designated as a half-day PD day, half-day work time. And then you can see the switch for December 21st, which is currently already identified on the calendar as a non-contact day. So that would be an opportunity for elementary middle school to have PD day on that in the half day and then a half day work time, a full day work day for high schools for inputting grades at the end of the semester. January is a day that's already set. March 1st, which is the end of trimester 2, is the other edition of the non-contact day. And that day happens to be the end of the trimester and 2 weeks before the end of the quarter. So for both our high schools and elementary schools, we thought it would be an appropriate time to allow for preparation for grades. Then April 22nd is already designated as a non-contact day, as well as the work day at the end of the year, which is May 31st. With this, it still comes out to actually 36 total hours, I believe, if we look at the work time. There's already 20 hours already included in the calendared work time. So this, believe, will help not just be spread out in an extra hour or so a day, but actually a big chunk of time that could be useful.
Okay, so we also addressed professional development. It was brought to our attention that teachers really wanted a desire to have time to learn and practice, and the cycle of learning and practice together collaboratively was part of our work together for IBB, for our subcommittee. So as Stacy was just speaking about in the previous slide, you guys can see there's some built-in PD times. And so our hope was that we'll continue with the ERW schedule as normal, which we meet district-wide once a month. I believe most of them are on the first Wednesday of the month. A few change depending on holidays and so forth. So we'll keep those as a virtual meeting if possible or when desired. But we're also going to add in some additional half-day PD times. You can see on the previous slide in yellow here. So you can see like on November 10th for high school, this would be school-based PD, but we could also partner with the district or we could partner with other schools. So if you're like me and you work in a smaller school and you don't have a partner who teaches the same classes as you could partner up possibly with, say, like a different high school so that you could have somebody to collaborate with, or you could, they could use this to partner with the district. So yeah, you can see in the slide that follows here, we just talked about the example schools at the same level could partner during the time, or we could do like CLDE PD for teachers who teach core classes that to help them better support our emerging bilingual students. And then our recommendation for this as well includes ramping up our support and training for leaders and content leads to ensure high quality PD moving forward. Thank you.
Following policies and practices. We will discuss whether the community schools, bosses, and Two Rivers teachers could get credit for the year's taught at those schools on our salary schedule. If they when transferring to Roaring Fork School District, will be transferring with the older years. And the committee advised that we don't want it to be perceived as recruiting teachers away from our partners at this time. So it was decided that these teachers will continue to be treated as out-of-district transfer for placement on the salary schedule and inclusion in the district retirement plan.
We were also asked to discuss whether our full-time building sub guest teachers could could count that year toward their placement on the salary schedule if they became a teacher in the district. And we decided that yes, up to 3 years service as a full-time building guest teacher would count as steps on the schedule. This only applies to the full-time building guest teacher positions, not the ones who the daily sub. Thank you. We were also asked to discuss the role that IBB plays in policy creation, who should be able to attend meetings. We have a survey that we conduct at the beginning of the year. So we were asked to talk about if that should be a joint effort and if there are any other changes that we should make to our process. We did decide that effective this school year, whole group IBB meetings will be open to others for observation. We already have begun that. Our mid-year and final year were recorded. And if anybody wanting to observe those meetings can do so in person or online. And also we decided that we would open up communication a little more during the process. So anytime we felt like we needed to communicate with people outside of the group, we want to make sure that happens. So we're getting good feedback during the process. Also, along with that, we decided that we will be working toward a master contract in the next IBB cycle. So that will allow us to discuss some of those, all of those facets that are up there on number 3. So the scope of IBB, the role in policy creation, who would participate, and the survey, if that would be a joint effort or any other steps that we need to look at. So we will begin working on that this spring and continue through the summer. And then when IBB starts in the fall, we will be able to have recommendations about how to proceed so that by the end of the IBB process next year, we'll hopefully have a master contract in place.
Last but not least, we were asked to revisit the leave policy that includes kinds of days and prohibition from using personal days prior to breaks, and to gain clarity on what counts as an exception on those days. All changes made to the leave policy were made with the desire of them applying to all staff. However, as non-certified staff were not part of our process, we did not want to include them without their input. Those employee groups will be consulted before determining if they will be included in this revised policy or if they will continue to use the current policy. Teachers will be granted 10 paid time off days PTO at the beginning of each school year to be used as staff see fit. Staff will be encouraged to provide as much advance notice as possible when PTO is needed. Every effort will be made to accommodate requests equitably and fairly while taking into account the impact on students and the school. The numbers of days will not change. That's it on our presentation.
Missed the last. There's one more slide.
Oh, there it is. There's one more slide.
There's 7.
Seven. Last but not least, this time,
There's 7.
there's 7.
There's more. I think there's like
3.
My clicker was not working with me. Out of these days, 100% payout for up to 4 of these unused PTO days will continue to be paid out on the July check. The rest of unused days will roll over into sick days, which can be used for personal illness, personal medical appointments, care of a family member, or bereavement. Days from the current year PTO must be used before accumulated sick leave can be used.
Staff will be encouraged not to take days on high need days and other previously non-allowed days. So currently in this year, for example, teachers aren't allowed to take a day right before a break. But we've changed that to say, however, that in the event outside of the employee's control, they can be granted. So for salaried employees, if that day is taken for a medical or emergency reason, or if a day is taken for a medical or emergency reason and there's no leave available, the leave can be approved. And in that case, the guest teacher rate will be deducted from the employee. If it is a non-medical or non-emergency reason and it is approved, then the teacher or the staff will be deducted the daily rate of pay. And for non-salaried employees who have no time left and no ability to get that through sick leave bank, they would take an approved day with no pay.
Fast.
Except for also, we changed the language in the birth section just to make it more inclusive and aligned with other policies.
Thank you all, and thank you to everybody who was involved in the IBB process. I was able to participate this year for the first time, and it was a very meaningful process. And it was a pleasure to be part of it, and I really took a lot away from it. So we'll now have 2 minutes each to ask questions and then 5 minutes of open board discussion. Director Ramirez is present remotely. She's traveling and in Denver this weekend. At the end, we will take action on approving the proposal as presented or amended. So do I have a motion to approve IBB's 22-23 recommendations?
I move that the board approve the 22-23 IBB proposal as presented.
I'll second.
It's now time for board discussion. Each board member will have 2 minutes. We will begin with Director Stepp.
Thank you all for your hard work. It's a lot. And that condensed that 10-hour meeting into 20 minutes. Thank you. And it's hard because I was making notes for each section, so I'll do as many as I can. Chief Markham, I just wanted to confirm that raising the starting teacher salary to 50,000, that puts us in that top third of our comparison districts. That was our goal, right? And
Yeah, so the overarching goal is to make sure the average teacher salary is in the top third, and that the outcome is the same, that we're in the top third.
of our comparison districts.
Yes.
As far as all the pay for other duties or subbing a period or lunch or stuff, was there a discussion around tracking all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff we're currently doing. It can be different between schools. So a lot of what it is standardizing so that equal rates are paid at every school. We track some of that now. There'll be some work to improve those processes, but yes, that's currently done.
I tried to click on the link for the other duties, the list, and it didn't work. So maybe we can look at that later, but.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to describe. There's really 3 prescribed rates. One is $150 for overnight trips. That's to be paid by all schools on any overnight trip. I think what we call the post-school activities, so things like taking tickets, kind of supervising athletic events, dances, those sorts of things, $20 an hour at a minimum of 1 hour paid. And then an additional administrator on duty, particularly at high schools. Principals can hire someone to act as an administrator on duty so they can spread that work more evenly. Beyond that, we have prescribed rates at $34 an hour for teacher using general teacher knowledge that anyone would be expected to have. The other one is $47 an hour, which is the average hourly rate for a teacher. And that's for using specialized knowledge accumulated likely over a longer period of time. So those are really the 5 rates. We anticipate there'll be some questions. We'll have to answer those as the year goes on. But I think the important thing is we've carved money out to recognize that additional duties happen and they should be compensated for.
I think we were all in agreement with that. So thank you for all looking at all that. With the healthcare committee, I know they've been working on it for 18 months. And I think I remember there was a survey to all employees to get feedback on that, or was there, or, yeah,
Yes, there was.
okay.
Yes.
I just don't want people to be, taken by shock to say like, wait, what? My benefits are changing. So that's awesome. And I think it sounds like a really good plan too. So in the professional development conversation, there's, the district professional development, and is it included in that like alternative licensure or work towards an advanced degree or another certification that could help them move up on the salary schedule? Or is it just district PD or discipline PD, or like, is it all inclusive?
No, there's opportunities for teachers to earn credit for salary advancement.
During those in-school times that,
No, these are more for like, there's like a teacher academy that happens in the winter and the spring and the summer.
so anything with alternative licensure is done on their own time outside of school. Pretty much.
I don't think I understand your question. Sorry, can you?
I was just wondering if the PD that's built in and we're adding more time, is there an opportunity for that to count towards CEUs or alternative licensure?
I think it depends on the content and who is doing it.
I just was wondering if that was part of the conversation.
That specific point was not, but we could add that, especially as we're thinking about the year-long plan.
Can look at it for the future. And Nathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but we increased the years of service for out of district, or like people coming in to the district, years of service I was a little confused about the other teachers from the community school or something coming in or considered out of district, but we increased the number of years of service from 10
Right.
to 20.
No, 10 to 15, going
15.
up by increments of 1. So I think this year, this year's 12.
This coming years.
This upcoming year will be 12.
We're
So,
working our way up.
so if somebody transferred from Basalt Elementary to Glenwood Elementary, they wouldn't go from step 18 to step 11 or 12. They'd stay on step 18. What we're saying is if you came from CCS or on the schools listed, you'd be treated as out of district and be capped at that 12 max.
12 max.
Yeah.
Okay. And you already answered my last question, so thank you. I'm done. 6 seconds left.
Thank you, Director Stepp. Do we have Director Ramirez?
Can you hear me?
Can you try now?
Give it a go.
All right. Hey, everyone. Okay, it sounds like it's working, so I'm gonna keep talking. Well, first of all, congratulations to the IBB team, to everybody who's put time into this, our staff. Thank you so much. This is great. It's innovative. It's so great to see that we are within, 3%, like $50,000 as a starting salary is amazing. So thank you to the team for doing this lift, for doing this work. I think it's amazing. And I also, just in reading the memo, the average increase for certified teaching staff will be 7.2%. And so I'm just so proud of our team for being able to do this. I also want to note that one of the things in the memo that I didn't see in the slides was how the increase will be retroactive to the beginning of the school year. And I applaud you guys' efforts in making sure that we are helping all our teachers, bringing their wages up. So kudos to you guys. I also just wanted to touch on us making sure that all of our charter schools and our staff that are still part of the district are being included in our conversation. And so I appreciate seeing all of that come across in your guys's presentation and the memo. And thank you, Nathan, just to be able to see your comments on here about the increase in the last 2 years for teacher salaries of 22%. It just really makes me as a director feel really proud that we have put a high emphasis in making sure that we are keeping to that commitment of trying to make sure that our teachers are getting paid a livable wage. I also want to commend the IBB committee in making sure that we codify and put into policy what IBB is and does, and creating the master agreement, which I think is vital to the future of not just IBB, but our district as a whole, and making sure that we're always taking into account that we want to be proactive and work with teachers to make sure that, and all staff, to make sure that we are doing best practices. So thank you so much to the team for doing this work.
Thank you. We'll move to Director Torres.
All right, well, I will be brief, but echo my thank you and appreciation for all the hard work that you've done in this process. I was wondering, and I apologize for not knowing this, but I'm curious, 120 or 172 contact days for students. What's the minimum contact days? Is that anything we need to be concerned about since it went from 174 to 172?
It's 160 days, but there's also instructional minutes that are minimums, which vary by the school level, with the highest being for our high schools, which is 1,090.
1,056.
Well, actually it's 1,090 scheduled, but 1,056 if you account for conferences or snow days and cancellations. Our elementary and our elementary schools through 6th grades have a little bit lower, but we're still well over in the number of days. However, what I mentioned with the instructional minutes is to make sure that the accumulated instructional minutes across the year exceeds the state minimum.
Perfect, great. So not like 12 snow days. We are not going to count on that. Just kidding. So my other question, in regards to the guest teachers, where it said that we could use the 2 years that the guest teachers have already contributed. Does that include if there's a gap? So if they had 1 year and let's say they took a year off and then did another year, would that then be starting over for 1 year, or would they get to count the whole year or 2 years? Is there no gap?
They will be able to count both years if they taught both years as building substitutes.
Okay, but if they took a year off, they would still.
Yes.
And is there a limit? So like if they took
3 is the
3
limit
years?
as of right now.
Okay. Okay, so 3 years is the limit to use, but if they took a gap, they couldn't say, hey, I did this 5 years ago. So
we have a permanent guest teacher program that's funded through ESSER. So we're going to start our 3rd year next year. So nobody could have 5 years ago.
okay,
The most anybody could work.
but moving forward, we want.
Yeah, we have to find a way. I think that was one of the slides or one of the points that we need to find a way to fund that on a permanent basis. It's grant funded through ESSER right now. So once that sunsets, there's currently no anticipation that will be back.
Okay,
But 3 years is the maximum gap.
Yeah, for current.
Right. Okay, thank you. And then just one other quick question. In one of the slides, it mentioned the ramp up support and training for leaders. And do you have any examples of what the ramp up would include or what that might look like?
I think this was actually from content leads that were on our team and having a specific request for more intensive development on high quality PD, how to like plan it out for the entire year, like what are some strategies that could be included for engaging content. And then for our leaders as well, whether that includes a strategic planning throughout the year so that our PD is aligned to priorities or having a consistent cycle. So that feels like we're focusing on a thing. But it varies a bit depending on whether it's a content lead or a school leader. But the overwhelming theme was that everyone wants high quality PD. And so we do want to make sure that they're getting it.
Great, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Director Tyler.
I would like to start off by also saying thank you to the IBB members who spent an inordinate amount of time on this process during the day, but also in weekly meetings, trying to get to this point. So thank you for everybody who participated. I would like to say some things I thought were really great that came out of this. I really liked the change in the sick leave to PTO of paid time off and getting rid of the difference between personal days and sick leave. I think that's a great thing for our staff. I also, in the health benefits change, I appreciated the look at this through the lens of do no harm and to make it safe, same or better, and how that sort of guaranteed that the change of the healthcare plan would leave the employees in a better place. And then finally, I was wanting to know, and especially maybe Megan, if you could address this, that you talked about the master contract. And I know at least when I was in the IBB process, I didn't understand prior to IBB exactly what that master contract meant. And so I wondered if you could just explain a little bit more what it means to have a master contract and what you perceive as any positives or places to watch out for in having this master contract.
Certainly. So a master contract allows us to place items and issues of discussion in a contract that has to be held for a certain period of time that is determined when the contract is determined. So districts all over the state have these sort of contracts, and they can determine what kinds of things go into the contracts. They can be simple and short, or they can be complicated and long. They tend to have things like salaries, policies, and working conditions in them. And what they do is place these things inside the contract, and then those things can't be changed until the contract is over, unless through a specified process that is also specified in the contract.
If I can add just really quickly to, often master contracts are referred to as master agreements. And so through our IBB process, currently every year we come to some agreements, and there's a compilation of them out there that exists. And so a master agreement is also a place where we capture all of the agreements that we've made with the RFCEA in one place, that memorializes them, that currently I think we often have to go back and say, okay, well, what was the last agreement around time? What was the last agreement around planning? What was the last agreement around PD? And a master agreement is a place that captures all of the existing agreements in one place.
So does this master contract still need to be developed then, or is what we've done in the past become the master contract?
No, it needs to be developed. We can take things that we have determined in the past and we could just place them in the contract, or we can modify them and place them in the contract. But yes, it all needs to be determined. So essentially, there's my understanding, and I am definitely learning about this as well, but my understanding is that in the state of Colorado, there's not a requirement for how a master contract needs to look. So we get to decide what goes in there. We get to decide, how we go about the process of making our decisions. And you mentioned things that could be positives and things to look out for. And I think a huge positive is that it becomes a predictable process, and that we, like Dr. Rodriguez mentioned, that we know where things are. I've been on IBB for many years, and people come and ask me, what's the current X? And I have to look it up because I can't remember, it's been so many iterations, and we have to figure out where that is. Sometimes there's a question over where that is. And so this makes that more predictable. And I think that's a real big benefit. A hard thing is something to watch out for, in my opinion, is it's going to be difficult to create this. It's going to be a lot of work for us to do. We can do it in steps and make it simple to start, and then build master, our first one can be simple, and then our next one can add things. So, and we're going to need to have the advice of experts in helping guide us toward best practices. And we do want to make sure that we're doing a good job representing everybody. So.
And is the hope to have that in place before the next IBB year cycle?
No, so the master contract would be determined. We would have certain things in place beforehand. My understanding is the board would need to make some policy changes that would allow that to happen. That would have to happen this spring, I believe. But there'll be other things that we have a group of people who want to get together and work on this from our IBB group. And we'll start to just look at some of the nitty gritty that we can then bring to the beginning of IBB next year and say, okay, here's a skeleton for what we have and what are we going to do during the IBB process to build that up so that by the end of the IBB process, we have something that we're going to take to the board and the board will hopefully agree to sign it.
Thank you, Megan.
So again, I just want to echo my comments at the beginning. Thank you to everybody who took part in this process. I don't have any specific questions because I was part of it, but a few things that I wanted to highlight are, one, I think this move to having a master agreement is super important. And as a board member, I'm excited by the prospects so that we have predictability with our teachers, and there's an expectation that these agreements are enforceable. The board signs off on them, they're enforceable for a set period of time. So I'm very excited about that move and that we were all able to come to agreement on that. It is going to be a lot of work, but we can definitely do it and tackle it within the next year. And I think for the long-term relationship between admin and teachers, it's super important to have ground rules set and know the process and have that predictability. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing that I just wanted to bring back around, kind of echo something that Director Ramirez says, you know, there was a lot of talk about including voice from across the district from groups that aren't represented. And I was very pleased to see that that's something that we all agree is important, and we want to continue to consider that. And so I'm looking forward to having those conversations and figuring out the best way to include voice from every employee group. Because as we could see in the slides, in terms of the leave policy, there's still a little bit of work to do there and making sure that it's either expanded to all groups or that we're delineating it. So I think moving forward, if we can figure that out, that would be a huge, huge win. So again, thank you so much to everyone who was part of the process, for the longstanding IBB members who have committed to this year over year. I applaud you because it is an effort, but it's worthwhile. And thank you for educating us newbies and pulling us along. With that, we have 5 minutes of open discussion as a board, if anyone has anything to add.
I have another question.
Yes.
Chief Markham, you said that the permanent building subs right now are covered by the ESSER grant. Do we have any plans for replacing those funds so we can keep, because we've heard, you know, a couple times now that is a critical position that's been a big help to the school. So I don't know what our plan is for that.
There's currently no specific plan. The plan would be next year to evaluate where those funds come from. I mean, it's $900,000 a year, I think, the last time I looked at it. So it's a huge lift. Just for context, that's about our entire sub budget. So it's something that we know has been very beneficial. We put it in place during COVID to keep itinerant staff from going building to building, 5 different buildings every day of the week to limit spreading. And then just because of the staff shortage or the sub shortage in particular, having that building site, you can count on right away. So we realize it's important. We'll discuss it next year and hopefully have a plan.
And the ESSER funds are through next year? Like we have one more year?
Yeah, so the building subs are funded for one more year, 23-24, and then it expires.
Okay.
And just to add a little bit of context, of course, as the team mentioned at the beginning of the IBB process in the fall is when interests are identified. But one of the things that this group did at the end of the process was already kind of identify a few possible interests for next year. And this is one of the ones that is on the, let's consider discussing next year through the formal IBB process.
I really appreciate you opening up the process so everyone can understand all the work that goes into it and all of this, hard discussions that happen throughout the year. So I think that's a great improvement. So thank you for that.
I was curious, and I didn't see it mentioned, but perhaps I may have missed it, but was there any discussion on how effective and how beneficial the early release Wednesdays is and the continuation of that? I just remember past years where there was a division on its effectiveness. So curious about that.
There's still a division. I mean, it's pretty consistent. There's a weekly survey that's sent out, or even in the IBB survey, there were questions. And so there are some departments and teams that really enjoy it and appreciate it because it might be the situation that they're alone in their building. And so they don't actually have another science teacher colleague or in their content area to collaborate with. And so without that common time, they would not really, unless it's outside of their time. And then for some, it does not feel like a better thing to do over in more instructional time for students. And so I'd say we're still pretty split. It's not a closed discussion though on, it's a constant question. Is this effective? Is this getting what we need? But I think one of the intentions too is to improve the PD time that happens both there and in the longer designated times.
Awesome. Thank you. And it's nice here too that there is the virtual option. So I think I remember a past public speaker, a teacher saying it just takes so much time for me to have to get from my school to this other school. And it seems like the virtual option minimizes that.
It is. And we all, no surprise, it's also pretty split down the middle. I really want to meet in person, or I really want to meet virtually. And so one of the things we put in there is not to say it has to be virtual, but, in discussion with that group or that department or whatnot, if they decide, hey, this would be really good if we had in person and the majority agree, then they can do that. Or if it's virtual, that's fine too.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Thank you.
Chief Bean, can you please call to vote?
Director Stepp.
Aye.
Director Goldberg.
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Aye.
Director Tyler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Directors. Thank you. At this time, we will welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. There are 15 speakers signed up tonight. The board allots 45 minutes for public comment. To respect the time of all who are present, speakers are to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. A reminder to all speakers to uphold our procedures for public comment. We ask you to be thoughtful and constructive with your comments, and thank you in advance for sharing your feedback. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may always do so in writing at any time. For this evening's public comment, we received over 130 written comments. Our first speaker is Jean Lakin.
Thank you, President Kuhlenberg and board directors, for listening today. My name is Jean Lakin, and I'm a homeroom teacher at CRES. I will very quickly speak on behalf of myself today. In 2017, I moved here after 11 years overseas. Living in Dubai was truly an adventure. However, as a woman of color, the systemic issues were absolutely ridiculous. Every day. It's here too, not as loud. So believe me when I say that I value the work you have taken towards inclusion. Please also hear me when I say in love that we must do better. To start, we need more meaningful standards of success beyond professional. Standalone, the idea of professionalism is an inherently subjective construct and has often been used to excuse conformist ideals that exclude certain groups over others. Remember, the Crown Act was only passed in 2020. Title IX, 1972. The Equal Opportunity Credit Act in 1974. As a small community, we value each other. We set up tables downtown to share homemade food and music with our neighbors, the ones we know and the ones we don't. Students brag about living next door to their teachers, and we all connect regularly, spontaneously, everywhere from the local pizza shops to nearby slopes. Accountability here doesn't mean just ticking a box. It's more. It means real relationships with the community. Equity in a small town means realizing we celebrate and lift each other up because it's the neighborly thing to do. Who wouldn't want to work for a district that genuinely bends over backwards to take care of all of its employees, especially if we became known for starting from the longest serving, lowest paid employees on up? Renting will never be equivalent to the wealth generating exercise owning a home is, even if that ownership is shared with or sponsored by another party. Staff shortages meant that earlier in this year, my little third graders had to stand on the bus their entire ride to school when drivers were sick. Yet, if we figure this out, they would never have to do that again. Recent federal apprenticeship funds means we could literally grow our own local teachers from within our community forever. However, if you believe an employee set to make over $1.1 million in 5 years cannot afford an average home here, what hope is there for the rest of us, the next generation? Voters recently trusted us to pass a mill levy. I hope you maintain our trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ricardo Zavala.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to start by saying my name. My name is Ricardo Zavala. I'm a paraprofessional. I'm a Spanish teacher and a bus driver at Carpenter Community School. I shouldn't even be here because no matter what happens out of this, at the end of the school year, my family and I were moving to Fort Collins because we don't own a house here. And with the prices that we get, with the salary that we get, it's going to be hard for us. So if you know a sponsor, please let me know. Okay. Second thing is, 8 years ago, I left Carbonate Community School. I was a paraprofessional there. And when I left, it's because I was making $1,600 a month and I was paying $2,000 for rent. I was not able to cover my rent, not even bills. I'm glad that right now paraprofessionals are going to earn more money. But what about bus drivers? What about kitchen aid, all of those staff members that we work for the district somehow or another? When I came into CCS and Basal Vista housing program came to life, I was so happy because I was going to try to apply for a house there, but because I'm not part of the school district, I wasn't able to put my application with the school district. So still searching for rent, right? What else can I say? I'm going to ask you a direct question, all of you. And if you can answer it yes or no, or just move your head. Did Mr. Rodriguez ask you for that amount of money? Then why do we need to offer it? Why? There is plenty of things. There is salary for teachers. There is buses that need to be put up to in good mode. By the way, this is my own personal experience with transportation. No one in transportation is talked to me about this one, but I saw it because I'm a bus driver. I know some issues with those things. So why do we need to offer $500,000 for a house? Why? Is that a good reason? Can we spend, 8 years ago, I left because school district told us that there was not enough money to raise my salary. And I was making $14, $15 an hour. Today, if I go to Wendy's flipping burgers, I can make 20. But I like to be with the kiddos. can we spend that money in many other things? And it's not just because Dr. Rodriguez, we are Latinos. I support my Latino community. I am brown. I support any Latino that succeed this program, this life, but please, $500,000 on a house. Maybe Dr. Rodriguez should apply for one of those Basal Vistas houses. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Elizabeth Taylor.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to us today. I'm Elizabeth. This is my husband, Dan. And basically, I just would like to start with a little bit about what equity is. And equity is focuses on equal outcomes, and equality is more about focusing on the same opportunities between people or the same access to opportunities. So I think that these two terms get conflated often. And so when we talk about equity, I think that actually it's a pretty unfair system. And I see that a lot. And I would like to, hopefully people could start to look at that. Equal outcome is not fair. Equal opportunity is. And so with that in mind, I would just like to take a look at what is going on. I mean, I feel like what the district is doing is focusing on, I see equity and diversity, equity, inclusion in a lot of the correspondence between administration and parents and other community members and in the newspaper. But I don't know if it's actually being believed, if you guys really believe it, because what I see going on here does not look like equity. I don't think that it's very fair to be offering such a large sum. I just want to say, I do appreciate all of the research that was gone into this. And I do think that there needs to come up with some kind of a solution, but this is that seems to be pretty excessive amount to be offering as a superintendent. So, and that being said, I just had a few questions that I just wanted to raise, and I think that hopefully they will be dealt with at the town hall that I think is going to be happening next week. First, I would like to know if only housing prices were looked at in this valley versus a little further away, like Newcastle. I mean, I think that there may be more affordable houses there, and I know that a lot of teachers live there. So, and I want to know, why did Dr. Rodriguez agree to accept the position without housing assistance, but is asking for and receiving it now? I don't know the answer to that. It seems like I'd like to know that. And the $500,000 seems like a pretty large amount. Is that a necessary number for what is going on? And I wonder if it's possible for the down payment assistance to be tied to the salary. Like, for instance, the higher the salary, the less the down payment assistance. I don't know. One more question would be, is it true that the down payment need only be paid back if the employee quits or is fired, or is it required to be paid back but interest free? So I just want to know if there's any requirement to pay back the interest or pay back the loan. I think those are some questions that I'd like to know the answers to, and hopefully they will be addressed at the town hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bruce Burton. We'll move on to Anali Garcia, and if Bruce Burton shows up, please let us know. Okay, we'll head down the list to Ellie McBrayer.
Soy un producto de estas escuelas de Carbondale y he encontrado una carrera satisfactoria como maestra en este distrito. Soy una maestra de tercera generación, la sexta persona en mi familia en enseñar para el Roaring Fork School District. Mi madre, mi tío, mi tía y mis abuelos construyeron una vida en este valle y enseñaron para Roaring Fork School District hasta su jubilación. Mis raíces son profundas. A pesar de todo esto, de semana pasado entregué mi renuncia. Debido al costo de vida, tengo que dejar la comunidad que me construyó. Soy la primera maestra de mi familia que no puede comprar una casa en el valle con mi salario actual. El próximo agosto no comenzaré otro año escolar en CRES. Estaré enseñando en Denver, donde podría comprar una casa. Me duele dejar la comunidad que me hizo quien soy hoy. Así que estoy aquí pidiéndole a la Junta que apoyo a los maestros. Mi salario es 25% de salario de Dr. Rodríguez. Si la persona mejor pegada del distrito no puede vivir aquí, ¿quién lo hará? Déjame hacer una advertencia. La rotación de maestros continuará sin apoyo financiero significativo. El enfoque debe estar en retener a las personas que pasan todos los días con los niños, que cultivan relaciones, que fomenten el amor por el aprender y que son el corazón de este distrito. Priorizar a los maestros para priorizar a nuestros estudiantes. I am a product of the Carbondale schools. I have found a fulfilling career as a teacher in this district. I'm a third-generation teacher for Roaring Fork School District. I'm the sixth person in my family to teach. My mom and uncle and grandparents built a life in this valley and taught for this district until retirement. My roots run deep. Despite all of this, last week, I turned in my resignation. Due to the cost of living, I am forced to leave the community that built me. I am the first educator in my family who cannot buy a home in the valley with my current salary. Next August, I will not be starting another school year at CRES. I will be teaching in Denver, where I could afford to buy a home. It pains me to leave the community who made me who I am today. So I am here asking the board to support teachers. My salary is 25% of Dr. Rodriguez's. If the highest paid person in the district can't make it, who will? Let me be a warning. Teacher turnover will continue without significant housing and financial support. The focus needs to be on the people who cultivate relationships, foster a love of learning, and who are the heart of this district. Prioritize teachers to prioritize our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Howie Kuhn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Howie Kuhn. I'm a teacher at Basalt Middle School. I would implore the board to consider the financial implications of this down payment assistance program. It requires a massive outlay of capital. And I want you each to consider the opportunity cost that $500,000 can make. That's money that cannot be put towards student achievement. That is not money that can be put towards teacher retention. This is a real estate investment with no guarantee of return. The district should keep student achievement and teacher retention in their mind, not the needs of a single employee. If the board is worried about hiring well-compensated district leaders, they should put themselves in the shoes of a principal trying to fill multiple open positions in SPED and math. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Heather Wilson.
Hi, so I met a few of you for the first time earlier, and I had the pleasure of working with Director Kuhlenberg and Tytler on IBB. I teach special education at Crystal River Elementary. I've lived in this valley for 25 years and both of my children attend Roaring Fork High School. The IBB experience was amazing. I really was, as a first year member of that group, in awe of the collaborative work that we achieved and feel really proud of that work. But tonight, as that representative for Crystal River Elementary, I feel compelled to speak to you regarding two items: the Learning Acceleration Plan and the Down Payment Assistance Plan. In my role as IBB rep for my school, I'm one of the people that teachers come to most when an issue arises that directly affects them. And I'm here to report that beginning with the introduction of the Learning Acceleration Plan on February 9th, and continuing with the proposed down payment assistance plan on March 1st. The high level of low morale, increased stress, and general disruption has been remarkable, not only for teachers in my building, but across this district, and it affects our students. Regarding the Learning Acceleration Plan, I'd like to quote from public comments submitted by former school member Matthew Hamilton, as I believe he best summarizes why you received the pushback that you did. Quote, "The goals of the Learning Acceleration Program are admirable. The process used to develop the plan seems to mimic operating norms we attempted to put behind us many years ago. Unfortunately, the learning program process seems to have been driven by a top-down command and control approach. For many years, our district has valued investments in our staff rather than bloated support staff and administration. The accelerated learning program seems to turn that paradigm on its head. Many teachers would appreciate it if we could take some more time with this and involve all stakeholders before moving on with this. In regard to the down payment assistance program, I think in general, people are just confused. The perception is that we completed the hiring process for this superintendent, including negotiating a significantly higher salary than his outgoing predecessor. I don't think anyone doubted that this process was complete, and it came as a surprise that an additional amendment to his contract that would benefit him financially was proposed. And not only is it proposed, but it seems it's a done deal. The majority of the board is in support of making this down payment assistance, and the board anticipates bringing an amendment to the contract on April 12th. Again, we're confused. We hired him, he's here, he agreed to the terms of the contract with a high salary that we believe was already taking housing into consideration. I'm not opposed to exploring this option, and I don't think others are either, but the timing doesn't make sense and it feels predetermined at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rose Rosello.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rose. I come from so many different walks of life. To kind of introduce myself, when I was trying to figure out what to say, became very long. But basically, I'm a mama here in the Valley, third generation local. I was a teacher for about 20 years in the Valley and lucky enough to move into HR. So now I'm HR, which means I totally understand the hiring and trying to find housing and trying to find the best world for everything that we need. As well, I'm on multiple commissions and boards here in the town. I'm here as an advocate for the teachers and the community. I really want to make sure that we're looking at the overall goals of what do we need? What are we looking for? For me, my dream is that we make this place a place that people can live and they can raise their families and they can stay here for a very long time. So how do we do that? And asking ourselves how we do that. And is it one large sum of money? If we have that, then we have that. But if we do have that, is there potential for other sums of money for other teachers? I know that we're asking those same questions up and down the valley. How are we going to retain our people? One of the things that Aspen is doing is they're offering $20,000 to $60,000 no interest loans to their employees. Is that something that we can look at? Looking at the communication surrounding this issue. When I was talking about coming here tonight, all the different misinformation that I was hearing is really scary. I don't want everyone to be against you. I want everyone to be on your team. So how do you get people to back what you're trying to do and what your process is and get that information out is the next question. So I'm really hoping that everyone goes through all the comments, tries to put away any of the negativity and take action and make it possible for maybe this amazing new part of our school district to stay. How do we get all these people to also be able to stay though as well? And taking action and making a change and for future teachers and all the ones that we have already. So thank you so much for our time and thanks everybody for coming and speaking.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lori Knaus.
Hello, esteemed board. An amazing community. Wow. Okay. I'm Lori Knaus. I'm registrar at Roaring Fork High School. I have 2 Roaring Fork High School graduates and 1 who is a sophomore at Roaring Fork High School. I want to start with a quick shout out to Begonia and Angie Davlin for their incredible work on the Health Benefits Advisory Committee, because it's really awesome work and it's been 18 to 24 months of a lot of hard work. So well done there. Okay. I also want to appreciate board members that took time out of their day today to speak directly to me. Natalie and Kenny, I really genuinely appreciate the time you take to have individual conversations to help me better understand and formulate my thoughts tonight. That said, I think there is a lot of confusion. This process has felt anything but transparent. And I feel that I represent lots of people who are critical of that lack of transparency in how this down payment assistance program seemingly came to fruition. I'm understanding that a lot of research was done. None of that research has been shared publicly with any of us yet. Perhaps that will happen tonight, but it could behoove you to have included that in the memo on Friday or potentially before the March 1st rollout of this program. There's a ton of confusion, and that's why many of us are fired up. And then when we receive a memo that has an amount that I thought was a typo, $500,000. I thought there's an extra zero there, that they should have really checked that, because I've seen programs like this with 50,000, 30,000. This feels exorbitant. Town hall meeting happening next week. Awesome. Should have happened months ago. If this research has been happening since the summer, this could have been a temperature check along the way with your constituents, the people you represent, your families, your staff, your teachers, your taxpayers. 500,000 is a huge ask. That's money I wonder could be spent out in other places this year. We don't know where that money is coming from. It hasn't been communicated to us. I'm hopeful that at the town hall meeting next week, you will be able to provide concrete examples of communities identical to ours, not ski towns. We are not ski towns. I want to see identical communities to ours that have the superintendent's salary and what down payment assistance program was offered to that superintendent. And then maybe we can have a conversation about what we should offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Robert E. Daniel. Next on the list is Amy Connerton.
Hello, I'm Amy Connerton. Some of you already know me. I'm a parent. I have a senior, go Demons, and a graduate of Glenwood Springs High School. But thank you for giving me the time to speak, you guys. I appreciate it. We're here again where transparency and decisions are being questioned by me, your stakeholder, and other constituents. I am, to say the least, disappointed. I'm disappointed with the matters at hand. It did start with, some of the communications I had about the accelerated learning, and I just can't speak to the specifics of any one employee being fired. However, I understand that this person was fired for simply doing their job. That was just the beginning of my disappointment. I have been a member of this community and school district for many, many years. I've been through several boards, leadership changes, and several superintendents and parent advisory committees, by the way. I've rallied for tax increases, including the recent mill levy override, to support the education for our students in all our communities. However, I can't support the suggestion or decision to provide over $500,000 to one singular employee as if this person was more important than any other. This position does come with important decisions how our schools function. However, at the cost of what? While this employee has no proven track record yet, I'm sure it's coming. Surely there must be other innovative ideas explored prior to this decision. However, again, this hasn't been shared with any of us. Whether or not we like it, the district is in the business of housing, and we, your stakeholders, have financially supported these projects. However, this feels extremely inequitable. Housing is hard for everyone in this valley, yet not everyone makes the salary comparable to the new superintendent. As a taxpayer, this feels like a knee-jerk reaction to a housing problem that affects everyone, not just one, as you guys have heard already from the 14 others who've spoken. Yes, the board is responsible for adopting a budget that will provide the financial basis for building, staff, materials, and equipment. However, I cannot support such a decision and urge you to go back to the drawing board. I do appreciate the fact that you guys have decided to do a town hall. However, again, that is a little late, but I do hope some of the questions you've been asked this evening, you guys will answer then. Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Up next is Nick L.
I'm not going to sit up here and be extra pleasant like everyone else has, because I'm upset. And a lot of people here are upset too. You have not heard one positive comment yet. Okay? If anything I say is incorrect, I will be the first to apologize and say I was wrong. Let me make that clear. It is insulting to offer that much money. You use whatever adjective you want. It is insulting to me to offer 10 times my salary. Us here in the room, us teachers, we are the ones that are in the classrooms when there's a lockdown because some nut job is walking around the premise with a weapon. We have to calm the kids down and pretend like everything's okay. We are the ones that are there during the pandemic, essential employees, along with teachers, doctors, policemen, firefighters, and we are the ones that cannot get housing in this community. If I went to a bank or to this program with my $50,000 a year salary, my $3,000 of savings, and the only possession I own that's worth anything is a 20-year-old car, I would be laughed out of the room. Dr. Rodriguez, you could easily go into a bank, say, I make $220,000+ a year and get a mortgage like any other person. It is a little insulting to me and a lot of other people that either you asked for it or that the board offered it. As I understand it, you are elected officials. You are elected into your position. And I hope that the reason, if someone asked you why you did that, would be to make a difference. The same reason why, if you would ask a teacher why they're a teacher, they're not going to say it's for the money. They're just not. It's to make a difference. And if that is the case, the simple fact that this is even up for debate, in my opinion, and the few colleagues I've spoken to, the damage is done. The damage is already done that it is even entertained that you would give that much money to someone, Dr. Rodriguez, that I was hoping more from you, that you would be able to read the room when I've met you a couple times. You're a very pleasant man when you came to our school. You met with us, you sat down, and that was amazing. But I would hope you would have the foresight to read the room. A lot of the people that work there, what their salaries are, or do your due diligence before applying for this job, knowing that it is very hard to get housing in this valley and what the cost of living is. And then take that into consideration when you signed your contract, which at the time did not include, as I understand it, any kind of stipend for housing, realizing that you're making $200,000, which should be enough to, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month mortgage. But it's us, the people that keep the schools open every day when there's, sicknesses, pandemics, when there is all kinds of craziness going. We teachers, we are the ones in the buildings, the bus drivers, the people that cook the food, the custodians, all of us. And we don't get to reap the same benefits. If I sat here and asked you for a $500,000 down payment assistance, I guarantee you it would be a quick no. I would be laughed out of the building. And to me, it is not okay that there's this double standard, that the people that are carrying the heavy burden are not the ones to get to reap the benefits of this program that you've designed. It is not okay. Just remember, you are elected officials. It is your job to do the will of the people. We are the ones that elected you there. And if we decide that it is not going in our favor, you're not representing the people that actually elected you into office, it is not that difficult to choose new people who can do that for you, because it is not okay right now.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy C. Amy C. Finally, we have Yvette Trincado.
My name is Yvette Trincado. I am a mother, and that's my primary role, is to be a mom. I have 2 students in Basalt. I'm amazed at the teachers that are in this room and the ones who spent all that time on the committee, because before I came here, I went to our parent-teacher conferences, and I thought, whoa, these teachers have probably been in this building since 7 this morning-ish, and they're going to be here until 7 tonight. And then some of those teachers were in this room. So the amount of time and love and dedication and passion that they give to my children, not just like our students, but make it real and personal to my children, that they live for them. One of the greatest teachers I have ever met in my life, I found out tonight, might not be able to stay in the Valley. That now she needs to be looking for another job. I'm in awe of this woman, what she has done for my kids. A kid that went through a lot of trauma at the beginning of the school year that we thought we might lose is now A's and B's again, happy to go to school. I know if there were a school shooting, she's going to lay down her life for him. I know she keeps them calm. He's not scared when there's a lockdown anymore. He doesn't have nightmares that night because he tells me, because Mrs. Sullivan is there, Mom. I know she's going to protect me. That's what we ask of the teachers now. And I know it's so hard for you guys to sit up here and to be criticized and to be, you have upset a lot of people. To hear that Dr. Rodriguez didn't ask for this, and yet he's being judged by a decision you guys have made without our input, that really feels like it was made behind closed doors. My kids are Latino, and statistically, one of them is giving you, they're part of a subgroup, right? So we're giving you, one's giving now good grades. One is really going to benefit from this learning acceleration program. He needs help in that. He doesn't need a dean of culture. What he needs is his teachers getting the support that they need. In the high school, we're worried about kids killing themselves during school. And if you don't have a high school student, maybe you don't know that. But we're worried about students killing themselves in class. We have teachers needing to make sure certain students never go to the bathroom during class because we need to keep them safe. Those people are on the front lines and they need your help. They need to make sure that they have a home to go to. They need to be able to stay in this district because they're giving their lives for our kids. And they're the ones that I want you speaking for, taking care of, representing. I'm not worried about Dr. Rodriguez. He is very competent and capable, and he makes a lot of money, and he's earned it and deserves it. But he doesn't need you to give him this gift. But there are how many teachers in this district that do need it? They need that lifeline. And that's why we've put you in this position, for you to take care of them, take care of our kids. We're counting on you. So please take that job seriously, and you need to earn our trust back. So we need some more transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. At the beginning of the meeting, the board amended the agenda to add a discussion on this topic, on staff housing, following public comment. That wasn't done in this room because we were entering executive session. So we will enter that time now. Dr. Rodriguez has asked to share a statement first.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here, for sharing your comments and concerns. When I first learned about the opportunity to apply to be the superintendent of the Roaring Fork School District, I was immediately drawn to some of the strengths of this community, which were outlined in the report shared as part of the search process. Community that celebrated its diversity, a focus on ensuring all students achieve at high levels, and a commitment to equity. I also learned early on about some of the challenges facing the district, including specifically hiring and retaining great teachers and leaders, specifically addressing housing, cost of living, and compensation. Housing and compensation have been major focus areas since before and after my arrival in the Roaring Fork School District. I'm proud of the work that our team is leading on the development of the 50 new units at Meadowwood, and of the work that you heard about earlier today that we were able to accomplish with the RFCEA via the IBB process. 2 weeks ago, the Board of Education here at the board meeting directed me and my team to explore down payment assistance options for staff. I appreciated the direction from the board at that time because I believe that our approach to support housing must be multifaceted. And I have heard that sentiment loud and clear from staff across this district. And I also believe it should be inclusive. I said this 2 weeks ago, I'm saying it again. I agree. We must find solutions around housing for all our staff, including teachers, bus drivers, food and nutrition service workers, and leaders, paraprofessionals, communication specialists, everyone. I believe this wholeheartedly. And this isn't the first time that y'all have heard this. It's an echo of something that I have regularly communicated. We will continue to face recruitment and retention challenges, as many of you said, until we find meaningful solutions when it comes to housing. Prior to every board meeting, I read every single written comment. Sometimes my team advises me not to. And I did the same ahead of tonight's meeting. While I appreciated learning why there is opposition to this proposal, I was also hurt by some of the personal attacks made against me, questioning my intelligence and integrity, just to name a few of them. You all have seen them. I want to thank the board for their exploration of housing assistance for the superintendent. And though the action the board will take this evening is only to engage with me about possible terms, hear me here. I imagine that I will have to respectfully decline, not because I disagree with their offer, but because it is an untenable situation to be in as the first beneficiary of such a program. I encourage the board to continue exploring this type of program in collaboration with broader stakeholders. I encourage our community to ask clarifying questions, to give input, and to seek to understand. But I don't want there to be any confusion about my motivation or my recommendation to the board to continue to explore this, because I do believe that in order to recruit and retain great educators in this school district, the board must continue to prioritize housing solutions including for the next superintendent of this school district. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go around in our typical fashion and give each board member a chance to provide a statement, which may respond to some of the comments. We're going to start with Director Ramirez, who's joining us mobily.
I want to obviously thank everyone present tonight and everybody who has submitted public comment. I'm going to share that we as a board believe that everyone in our community, from staff to families, deserves living wages and affordable housing options. Our board recognizes that housing is an issue plaguing all our stakeholders, including teachers, families, and students. As a board, we've recommitted to prioritize teacher housing by creating an additional 50 units in the planned Meadowood project. That project is expected to cost roughly $520,000 per unit, or between 24 million and 28 million total. At our March 1st meeting, as Dr. Rodriguez stated, we directed the superintendent and the district team to look into a down payment assistance program that could benefit all Roaring Fork School District employees, including teachers, staff, and administrators, to help with potential home ownership. We are committed to making our district attractive for high quality talent and retaining our staff. As the board, we manage and oversee one employee, the superintendent. The superintendent is tasked with managing and overseeing all other district employees. We believe it's important for district leadership, and especially the superintendent, to live in the district and be a part of the community. It's also what we heard directly from the community during the superintendent hiring process, that this should be a requirement. It's important that we offer a competitive benefits package to attract and retain quality leaders in all capacities within district leadership and staff. This money is not coming from mill levy dollars. And I want to clarify that our superintendent, Dr. Rodriguez, did not ask for this amount or any amount for that matter. The board understood clearly during the superintendent hiring process that this was an issue we needed to find a solution for. The proposed idea is not an interest-free loan or a gift or additional stipend for the superintendent. Rather, we hope to recover the loan at the end of the tenure of our superintendent. On a final note, we would like to invite you all to our Housing Solutions Town Hall next Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Director Torres.
Thank you. So I appreciate everybody who came out tonight. I think that this is a reflection of why this community is strong, because when they have something that they feel passionate about, they come, they're heard, they voice their opinion. I have to say, I respect all of my fellow board members. This has been a challenging few weeks, as I think we have a lot of opportunity to improve our communication. When I read the memo, I didn't feel like we were at a point in which the way that it was, I think, received was, oh, this is a decision that's already been made. This is something that's been decided, and where on earth did this come from? I have to say, I had concerns with the amount from the beginning. I never felt like that was a final number, but rather a starting place for discussion. I think that this is an opportunity for us as a board to say, how do we better communicate with each other and with our community when we're looking at programs that impact our district? When we look at this, we all agree, and I think that's the only unanimous portion of this, was we need to come up with something. Housing is an issue. Housing is an issue for our teachers, our staff, our leadership, our community, everyone. And I I feel like it has escalated with a lot of misinformation that's really hard to combat. So we're going to obviously do our very best at a town hall. And at the same time, I would hope that, I'm not going to jump on social media and be like, hey, this is what I think, but rather express, let's all hear each other's thoughts and opinions and come to a place in which we feel good about and we can actually come together and not feel like there's any secret deals happening and that we don't have to read about something and feel as though we weren't involved with that process. So I just want to be very clear that this is not something that by any means has been decided. If anything, it is what could we possibly come up with and what's the discussion look like? Because it's something we all know is a important thing for discussion, but it is not something that's going to be decided with just 4 or 5 people sitting around a table. So that's all I have to say for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Torres. Director Teitler.
I would also like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and expressing your opinions, and thank you for your involvement and for the work that you do. I appreciate that. I would like to give a little background on what our thought process was with this plan, where it came from, and what our thinking was, or at least my thinking. When we hired for the new superintendent, we had 22 candidates, 20 of which said that receiving some kind of housing assistance would be either important or a deal breaker for them. The 2 people who said that wouldn't be an important part for them already had houses in the district. It was then that we decided we needed to look at, upon hiring a superintendent, the importance of trying to get that superintendent to feel like they would stay in our district for a long period of time. We know that in Colorado, the average tenure of a superintendent is around 3 years. We wanted to see what can we do to have longer than 3 years with the superintendent, understanding that when a new superintendent comes in, they come in with their ideas and their visions, and there's accompanying that change, and change is hard for staff. And we did not want to see where we were in a position where change happened in a repetitive and regular basis that would have a profound impact upon all in our district. We also looked at housing and what is being supplied to teachers and staff at this moment. Along with the Meadowwood 50 units that are going in now, we will have 120 units for teachers and staff after that is done. All of those units will have been coming along on a price tag similar to $500,000 for all of those units. It was thinking that if we've done that for 120 staff, we feel like it is important that we can also do that for our superintendent and perhaps some kind of administrative staff also. I understand the idea of wanting to retain and recruit the best teachers possible. I think we also want to make sure that we are recruiting and retaining the best administrators and the best superintendents that we can also, and that is important that we have that as a common theme throughout. We came upon the down payment assistant idea in that we thought it would be more financially prudent to have it done this way than trying to supply a house, which would cost more money in that sense for that position. With the idea that upon separation, if the superintendent were to separate, that at that point, the money would be paid back and it would be an investment in our district. It is as an investment that would in perpetuity be able to be for superintendents moving forward, but also hopefully for other staff members also. I was unaware at the beginning of looking into this, and when we proposed this, that there was a housing committee actively engaged in our district at that point. Hindsight for me would be to have involved that group, and I would like to apologize for not having involved that group. And that if I had a do-over, I would have a different way of approaching that. I also would like to say that I think something that we as a board need to work on is communication, making sure we are bringing in better our constituents and bringing in better, having more forward loading communication at times instead of coming in the way that we came in with this project. So I do want to say that I was under the idea of, when proposing this, that we have done this 120 times for our teachers and staff. I thought for doing it for a superintendent and looking and tasking the superintendent into looking for some other administrative positions, I thought if we're looking at a ratio of 3 to 4 compared to 120 that we had already done, that is not being outside of what I perceived as fair. I think in a board position, we need to look from the 30,000-foot view of the entire district and not look for only ourselves. And I say this as having been a teacher for a long time. I understand the importance of teachers. I also understand the importance of other positions, and I feel like we were trying to look in a broader scope. And I also to look forward to having a conversation that hopefully we can find a way together to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tytler. Director Stepp?
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for sharing all your comments tonight and written throughout the last couple of days. I want to thank our chair, Director Klomberg. She's been spearheading this research for the past year, taking a lot of that on herself, above and beyond the chair duties. And we did look at a lot of different programs, including buying a house or building a house, which is what Aspen does. We looked at a lot of school districts across the state, across the country. And in the memo that was put out, she did say that it was a proposal. It was not a proposal that was unanimous, but it was a proposal, it was a starting point. It amazes me, all the rumors that we heard come back at us. I was like, whoa, where's that coming from? But that happens with lack of information, right? So for those of you who talk about transparency and information in the research, we have that research and hopefully we can share it at the town hall. When we hired Dr. Rodriguez, we had all the comparison salaries of our comparison districts, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's 12 comparison districts in data that we use for teacher salaries and for administrator salaries. And, it was right in the midst of that. I don't know all the different housing options that are out there. I know a house is provided, a stipend is provided, this is provided. A lot of it is in the superintendent contract. We thought of like a down payment assistance as a no interest loan we talked about, and we were going back and forth. We were all over the place on how much that should be. We're like, maybe a 20%, like a 20% down payment on a house is normal. Like, so what does that look like? And as far as the average house in this valley, and we're talking about should be paid back at the end when the house is sold, or with the increase in value. So that would have more money into the program, or do they pay back 1% a year? So these are all the questions that we're asking and dealing with and looking at, and we have not decided. I think what happened was this went a little bit premature into the paper because we were just discussing this in executive session tonight, and we still haven't landed on anything. So we appreciate all the input, and I wrote down a bunch of your questions. What our comparison districts are doing, what can we do more for teachers? Where's all this money coming from? So those are questions that we all have, right? So if it's coming out of reserves, or how we're going to replenish those reserves. We put this chunk of money in, how many people is it going to help? Like if we do like $300,000 or $50,000, whatever that number is, how many people can that serve? And how is that money replenished and back into the system? Because we do want to help as many people as possible. The rental program that we have right now, that Director Tytler talked about, serving 120 teachers, which is awesome, but we have over 900. So it's not enough. And right now our administrative staff isn't eligible for that program. So one option was like, well, can they be? But that is not a path to home ownership. And that's what we were looking at with this down payment assistance program, is that it's a way to get started. And how can we do that for more people? So yeah, lessons learned, transparency, sharing the research that has been done. We have not decided. We are not giving money away. We are loaning money. And so, I just appreciate everybody coming and sharing their concerns. We have the same concerns. We want to work with everybody to address them, including the teachers, the community, and the executive team. How can we move forward? I forget who said it. It's like, we have to earn your trust back. We hear you, and we are working on that. We appreciate that. A lot of people reached out to us, and we talked to a lot of people over the last couple of days. And I just want to thank everybody for sharing their concerns. That's what we do, is we bring those concerns up at our meetings, in our discussions, in our executive sessions, or in our work sessions. We have those discussions. We do the best we can to address all those and address the issues that we have at hand. A lot of you said you're giving that to one person, but we're trying to make it sustainable for the future, because a lot of our comparative school districts are doing this. We live in a really hard place. And so how do we make it so that we not only are retaining high quality people, but attracting, and that's at all levels. So we're going to do our best. Thank you for all the questions, and we'll try to answer them on Wednesday as best we can. But again, thank you to Director Kohlenberg for spearheading this and taking the brunt of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll make a few comments as well. First of all, I want to echo, thank you all for being here. I know this is a busy week. I know how hard it is to make this time ahead of conferences. I know some of you, but not all of you. I'm an early childhood teacher, and I'm in the same boat. I was up at bright and early before starting my day, writing comments. So I know how hard it is to make the time to be here. I want to echo that I think we've learned lessons regarding communication, and coming into this role, there's not a handbook that says this is the way the community expects you to engage them. I think that's been doubly hard this year because we have new administration as well. And so the process that has been done historically has been passed down in that way. And those of us who are new here don't know that. The intention with bringing this proposal before the community tonight was so that we would have well over a month before we were taking any action on any item related to this. And bringing it up 2 weeks ago to the community was, again, to let everyone know that our intent as a board is not to provide assistance for only the superintendent. We recognize and fully hear and support that we need to be looking at housing for every employee within our district. The housing market has made it unattainable for most people to come and move here, especially people that are working with our children and in our schools, which is such an important role within our community, and one that we recognize is imperative. And so our hope in bringing that and giving some specific direction a couple of weeks ago was to direct our sole employee that we have authority over to make that a priority so that other people within our district could benefit from a similar program. When we went through the process last year, as Kenny explained, 20 of our 22 applicants asked about housing or said it would be a requirement for them to take this position. And it was clear at that time to me that this was an issue that we were going to have to address now or in the future. During the search process was not the time to address that issue. There was not time to figure out the specifics. There was not time to do research. There was not time to engage in any way whatsoever on that topic. And I wouldn't wish it upon any future board to have to entertain that discussion during a search. I think that it would doom a future leader to failure. And part of my motivation to bring this forward to the community in a time when we're not in a search process is to hopefully avoid that, because I think that that is not healthy for anyone in our district to conflate the issue of housing assistance with the ability of someone to lead. It would have been much easier to punt this down the line. It would have been much easier to say, not our problem, and we're not going to deal with this right now. But again, I think that that would be irresponsible. It's very clear to me that this is an issue that is going to affect the long-term health of our district. It was also very clear to me that there would be significant pushback. And I can understand why. Like, again, I fully support continuing to create housing options for our teachers beyond the current projects that are slated. We need to be thinking long-term about how we house more and more of our staff. Housing costs have become not just difficult, they've become totally unattainable. Our staff are not able to shift into owning housing. Through this process, we have very intentionally kept our current superintendent out of the loop, because I think an obvious concern, if you were at all involved, would be that this process was some way tainted and was some way impacted by the opinion of the beneficiary of the program. An unintended consequence of that is that while I periodically checked in with staff, there wasn't an ongoing and open dialogue with district staff on this. And as Director Tyler mentioned, I did have a lot of meetings with a lot of people over the last year, and it never was suggested to me that I meet with the housing committee on this or that I bring this to a housing committee. And I was ignorant to the fact that there was one, and that is on me. But, I clearly should have done more there. And I also would expect that, that would have been something that would have been brought up. But at this point in time, I'm not of the position that this is the only model that we do. As has been mentioned, we've researched several. I am of the position that, from my perspective, this is the most fiscally responsible model in order to assist our leaders with housing. And I'm definitely of the position that something has to be done. I think that if we ignore this issue, it's going to severely impact our ability to retain high quality leaders, to attract future high quality leaders. And the end result will be a consistent turnover within some of our top leadership positions. And the ultimate impact will be upon our schools, our teachers, our students. To have consistent changing directions within our district would be incredibly difficult. And I don't think that that behooves anyone within our community. I hear everyone loud and clear. I think we hear your concerns. We have a town hall set up last week. Again, hindsight's 2020. I wish that we would have planned that ahead of sending out the proposal and made it clearer that this was a proposal. And one of the things that I too have been very surprised about is the amount of rumors in the rumor mill and the channels of gossip and whispers that have started, and that's been difficult to manage. Some of it's been constructive and some of it has not. I've personally offered to speak to anyone that's reached out and talk to them and engage them on this, and I'm happy to continue to do that. But I just want to reiterate that at this point, this is a proposal. It's one that I feel is something that we're going to have to address, and I'm happy to talk with anyone and share more research on why I think we need to address this. But I think it's something we need to be seriously considering and thinking about. The specifics can be worked out and determined down the line. But again, I don't think that the time to do that is during a search when we're in a position where we have to hire. I think the time to do that is when we're in a lull and we can think about this and engage people, and the stakes are not as high. I'm disappointed that there have been negative comments directed towards our superintendent. I bear some of the responsibility for that, I think, in the way that this was rolled out, and not anticipating, again, that it wouldn't be received as a proposal and would be received as something that was set in stone. So I'm sorry to Dr. Rodriguez for having to bear the brunt of that. I think that he is in an untenable position in regard to this. And it saddens me because I think there's potential for a leader. And I think it's difficult for anyone to come into that kind of speech and those type of comments. So moving forward, I know now, I know the playbook is different from what I thought would be a route to address this, which was introducing it a month before, having a month to engage in dialogue and moving forward. And sometimes you have to learn things the hard way. So this is one of those situations. I think there was never an intention to block anyone out or, not engage. At the same time, the board recognizes that the only person that we are responsible for is the superintendent. And we're not in a position to overstep that. So those are my initial comments. I look forward to continuing to engage at the town hall. I appreciate those of you that have taken the time to reach out, to talk to a board member, to express your concerns. And I'm 100% open to continuing to do that in a productive way and in a constructive way where we're looking for solutions. So thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break. Sorry.
Can I say one more?
Yes, Dr. Tyler has.
I would like to say one more thing. When we say Dr. Rodriguez is our only employee, I would like to say in the way in which the board operates, we can ask Dr. Rodriguez to do something, and he is under our orders to do it. We cannot say for the chief financial officer to do something for us, or for some other group to say this needs to be done. We can direct the superintendent to ask that gets done, but in the sense of how we can say something is done for one employee, he is the only one, or she, being the superintendent, of who we can actually say we need this done. And so by us saying our one employee, we recognize that we are here for the entire staff and all of the students and all of the teachers also. And it's not that they're not our employees also, but just in the way in which we are allowed to make a decision. And so I just wanted to clarify that we all do believe that we are here for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Tyler. That's an important clarification, and I appreciate you making it. Yeah. And when I say that, it's more from a process perspective. So we'll take a 5-minute break and return to regular meeting business.
You can all stay if you want.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to stay for the next few hours.
Katie, I'm sorry. I don't think anybody noticed I raised my hand. Kelsey?
I don't even know what I said, but.
8:40 PM and we're back from a quick break. The next business in order is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel, minutes from our previous board meeting, approval of proposed policies JICA, JHB, DJE, and BIDBIE on final reading, approval of policy GBGG on first reading, and 2 actions resulting from IBB, an amended calendar for 23-24, and changing the district's health benefits provider from Willis Towers Watson to Willis Towers Watson from from Willis Towers Watson and CEBT to Think Health and related providers. Directors, are there any items that you would like to pull off the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote?
Yes. And I just put a Reese cup in my mouth. Sorry. I would like to pull off policy BID and /BIE for more discussion, and also the health benefits provider change. I think we just saw the final presentation tonight, and not saying that it won't pass, but I just think it's such a huge, important thing that it should be its own item and not just okayed with the consent agenda. So I'd like to pull those 2 things off for a separate vote.
For clarification, have we already approved that via IBB, the health providers? Because we did just vote on that. It's my only.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding that IBB had requested that be a separate vote. Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, if we already approved it when we approved the IBB proposals, then that's fine. We can just approve it with a consent agenda. I just felt like it was so important, it deserved its own special vote, but if we already voted.
For sure. And that's, I'm not sure on that, but I think that we did already. And that would be my only. Okay.
I know at least 2 of us on the board had time to see that proposal in IBB and felt at least that we got a better time with it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's not that we were going to vote no. It just approving it in the consent agenda just felt like checking a box versus this is a huge change.
Right.
So I'm good. We're fine. So just the only thing I would pull up is the BID/BIE.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended?
I motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
I second.
Call to vote?
Director Step,
Aye.
Director Ramirez. Aye. Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Aye.
Director Tyler,
Aye.
motion passes.
So we'll now move to policy BID/BIE for a separate discussion and vote. We will start with you, Director Step.
So in talking about this policy change in previous meetings, we had talked about the possibility, well, the state made the change, and so I think our policy should reflect that change, that it is a possibility for board members to be compensated. And it says in there, are eligible to receive an annual stipend of $5,000. I guess my question is this policy change changing it for the next board starting in December? Or is this just a policy change that will say it's possible in the future? Like, is
It would be effective the next board election. So when we say eligible, we had talked about once a year, you get a form that says I elect to receive compensation, I decline to receive compensation. And that's the eligible piece. I read this.
I
as-
guess I have a can there be 2 separate things? Like the policy is future boards can be compensated versus it's in effect for the next board. I don't know. I'm not being clear on that.
I think the law says you can't vote it for yourself. It would have to be the next election
Right.
for the eligibility to take place.
But then each board member can decide to not receive it.
Yeah.
I guess that where I'm questioning it is I don't believe the board should be compensated. And so I wanted to approve the policy that future boards can be because the state changed the law. But I don't agree with allowing that. I mean, again, I'm not being clear. Does that make sense? It's like, we need to change the policy because state law changed, great. And I want to vote against us being compensated. That makes
So
sense.
I think the policy is updating. It's saying you're eligible. It's not saying you're required to, or the district will. It's saying you're eligible to.
That was my question.
Yeah,
Is
that's,
this
I
is
think,
saying we will? get-
yeah, and then we would make it a choice for each board member because some will share your view that it's voluntary and you would decline compensation, and others would say, you know, I really need that $500 a month to pay for childcare for the 2 meetings I have that last until 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I guess if it has that provision that board members can decline, then I guess that addresses my concern.
Director Ramirez, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Torres.
Sorry.
Sorry. Well, I'm glad that Director Stepp mentioned actually what I wanted to bring up as well, because I equally share that I don't personally agree with getting compensated by being a board member, but having the option to decline, that I think is perhaps something that we could include in here. It says eligible, it doesn't say you have to. And if it needs to include a process in which to go through to say eligible to receive this annual stipend of X amount of dollars, with an option to, I don't know, decline it, maybe a renewal, because we're in it for 4 years. So you might decide initially, I'm not going to be paid. I'm just saying, if I'm a brand new board member and I'm like, I'm doing this as a volunteer, right? I decline getting compensation, and then I have a child. In 2 years, I need help. I need childcare. If there is an option to say, now I actually would like to receive that, is that something that can be built into this, or do we need to define that?
I think we're talking more process around and not policy. That you're
Okay.
going from 30,000 feet to 3,000 feet. And we can certainly work on a process that includes all those. If that's what we've talked about, is a first-year board member may come in with, I shouldn't be compensated, and after realizing, holy smokes, like I had to take so much time off of work that I didn't get compensated for. I had to drive so many miles that I didn't get compensated for. I had to pay for so much childcare that I didn't get compensated for. Like, I really need this to make this volunteer position work. So I think an annual basis is what we envisioned as accepting or declining.
Okay. And just one other really quick, is the 5,000 something that was recommended by CASB, or did we come up with that figure?
So I put that out as at the max of $150 a day. That's 3 1/3 days work a month for 10 months. And that's no magic to that. It just seemed like a reasonable number to maybe incentivize someone to run who just needed that extra care, again, for taking time off of work. If they don't have the PTO to take, trying to build a deeper pool, but also without saying I'm in this for the money.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to get rich off of doing this. Let's just go there. But
yeah,
okay, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I understood that and where that came from.
Thank you.
So I just answered my own question because it says in here, board members were served without compensation unless compensation has been authorized by a written resolution adopted by a majority of the board. So what we're approving tonight is just this policy we haven't done a written resolution yet. Is that correct?
We would have to do that at the
After
swearing in of new members in November. If they elect to receive compensation. Or if
So it is kind of two separate.
you all rerun and elect to receive compensation, yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So I'm okay with moving forward with the policy as it is.
Director Ramirez, do you have comments?
Yeah, Chief Markham, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we mention at our last board meeting when we had this policy before us that we wanted to possibly include language around the board chair receiving an additional amount in their stipend?
That was discussed, but there was no, that was discussed, but I think it died on the floor.
I would actually push us to make sure that that language is present. I think that I mean, we all know what it is to be a board member at this point in time. And I think we all also understand that the responsibility of the chair is really not I mean, it overreaches the amount of work and time and energy that the rest of us put in. So I would push our board to add language around providing the chair of the board of this district extra compensation because their responsibilities far surpass our own.
Director Tytler, do you have comments?
I guess I would just support with what Director Ramirez was saying about the stipend for the president, which I recognize as being that much more work than the other members. And I would be fine with the other members getting paid less and having the president get paid more.
I know this was discussed at the last meeting. I actually am opposed to it because I think that for ease of application, it makes the most sense to have everyone receive the same. I think that if in practice we see that it's difficult to find members to serve as chair, that it's something that a future board could address. I guess I see this as the first step in making this accessible to more members of our community because it's at least offsetting the lost time and the outlay of expenses that you incur while serving in this role. So I disagree on making that change. So we'll have 5 minutes to discuss as a board and then we'll vote on this policy. Is there anybody that has comments off the bat?
I guess I want to clarify for the resolution, is that, I guess I just assumed that with this policy, we were authorizing that this was going to happen. And so I guess I'm wondering, Chief Markham, how we would go about, like, what would that process be? Would this board have to then bring forward a resolution in one of our upcoming agendas to have this come before the board?
Director Ramirez, I think I can answer that. Yes, I think that the policy is the first step in order to make this change, but the statute clearly requires that there's also a written resolution that is adopted by a majority vote and signed by the board.
Do we need to make the suggestion that Director Torres said about the possibility of accepting or not accepting? Do we need to make that in the policy, or is that in the process later on in the resolution?
I assume that's a regulation.
Anyway.
I don't think it's necessary. I think the current language encompasses that with the board members are eligible.
So it would be in the resolution process later on.
I assume
Yeah,
that's.
I don't know that it would have to be in the resolution, but I think the process that was outlined would have specifics on that. Like Nathan was saying, that would be the nitty gritty of how it's applied, and that would be worked out after the policy is enacted.
Chief Markin, do you have any idea of how other boards are doing this and whether it's a common choice amongst other districts to have their board members paid?
I think every board is having the same discussion because it's a new statute. So the only thing I've seen is, Chalk Beat Denver's looking at the max, which is like $36,000 a year or something like that. That's the only context I have.
Thank you.
I would add, I agree with Director Kohlenberg. I think that the compensation should be equal for all board members. I recognize and I share in I've experienced it as a board chair. The work is significantly different. However, I do think there is also great equality in saying we're all in this together, and I may serve as the board president for this term, but maybe, you're going to serve as the board president the next term, and gaining that experience from one another and recognizing that regardless on what your title is at this table, we are all board members and we serve on different, you all are serving on IBB. It was a tremendous time commitment. I have not served on IBB, but I think there is a lot that goes into this role, whether you meet with somebody at a coffee house to talk to a community member, or you have a phone call, or you're on a subcommittee, that is just across the board. If you choose, it's your own personal choice to get this compensation, it's equal, regardless on the title that you may hold, is my opinion.
Director Stepp, do you have an opinion on that? Specifically, if there should be additional compensation for the chair?
Having not been a chair and both of you as chairs saying no, I originally agreed with Director Ramirez that I know it's a lot more work. But like I said, we all serve on other committees and doing other stuff. So if you agree that it should all be the same, then I'm okay with that.
I could agree to that too.
Okay. Are we prepared to vote on this policy? Chief Bean, can you please call the vote? No, we need a motion as well. I have a motion to approve policy BID/BIE on final read.
I move to approve the motion to approve BID/BIE.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call to vote.
Director Stepp,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Director Kohlenberg.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Aye.
Director Tyler.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Chief Markham. The next business in order is the superintendent evaluation summary and action on the contract addendum. Is there a motion?
I have a change to the addendum proposal. Under where it says, now therefore the parties agree as follows under number 1, where it says replace the words December 31st, 2022 with June 30th. I would recommend that we change June 30th to as soon as possible. What did we say?
And no later than.
And no later than the end of the school year, which is June 1st, basically. But we know that Dr. Rodriguez has been working on all the pieces of the superintendent certification, and we believe that it will be done way before the end of the school year. So we just thought this was more in line with what we've been discussing.
Is there a motion to approve the contract addendum as amended?
I move the board approve the superintendent's contract addendum as amended.
Is there a second?
I second.
I'm going to go to discussion prior to the vote. It seems that that's out of order.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So we're going to move into board discussion. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share any comments, and we'll begin with Director Torres.
Can I ask a quick clarification question, please?
Yes.
Are we talking on just the contract addendum, or are we talking about the staff memo and the public summary?
We're talking on all three in our comments and discussion, and the vote is specific to the addendum.
Thank you.
So I shared this with you all already, and I'll share it again here publicly. I do want to express, I didn't feel as though my comments made it in to this evaluation. So I would like to know that could be something that I can either get added or why it wasn't included, because I think there's a lot of positives in this, but I think a part of our critical evaluation is to give things to work on. Give feedback, because I know I love when somebody says, hey, you could do this better, or this is an area of growth. And I didn't see any of my comments that made it into this final draft from what I submitted. So I would like to.
Maybe I can respond since I don't have a presenter. None of us had access to one another's evaluation submissions. Everything was compiled by a third party into a draft that we then considered the week that you were unfortunately out sick. So I'm not sure why they didn't. And I think that is something that we can circle back with our consultant about. And yes, I'm open to considering that. And I know that we did ask about that, but you were in no shape to provide any feedback at that point in time. So I don't have a specific, because I wasn't privy to everyone else's evaluations. Do you have any other comments or?
No, good.
Okay. Director Ramirez.
I mean, just thinking about the last 3 years of doing the superintendent evaluation, and that literally being all rainbows and stars. I really appreciate the amount of work that we made sure to make this process not only inclusive of all board members, but really taking the time with it, with our consultant to come to this place where we collectively looked at where we landed with his evaluation of himself as well as us. So I just want to say that I appreciate the amount of work that went into making sure that we have a better process than we've ever had before. I also want to say that, I think that this has been something that on my end, at least, I learned so much of how we can do this better. And I look forward to us as a board having a conversation on how we can ensure that in the future, comments that unfortunately came through that were frankly racist don't make their way back to this conversation. I think, as mentioned from our first speaker tonight, we all know and are fully aware that racism still exists within district boundaries, and it's something that I think we all actively have to participate in making sure we work to solve collectively. And I just really want to make sure that we also give kudos to everyone who participated, and also George, who gave so much time to us to make sure that we were all involved in this process. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Director Tyler.
My opinion on this and my comment would be that I think we need to look a little bit more about the questionnaire, the survey that we provided to the public. And I'm not sure if that survey would be different in year 2 of the district superintendent's evaluation, and that there would be more information that people would have upon being able to answer those questions. I felt there was such a large percentage of I don't know, and I'm not certain whether that was the survey that we asked, or the position being only the superintendent only being in the position for 5 months when those questions were asked. But I believe that's something we need to look in and discuss and have a conversation as a board, if that is the right survey to be given to the public, if that's the right survey maybe for just us as a board, and what is the input gathering way that we're looking to see this survey, because I think the information we got was unfortunately incomplete.
Thank you. Director Stepp.
Thank you. Again, for transparency, this was a new process. And we, back in August, we went through a retreat and kind of outlined, this is what the superintendent does, this is what the board does, this is what we do in collaboration. And kind of, we had it all over whiteboard, and we developed that survey from that work. I think we all agree that the process can be improved. It was the first year of doing this. I think we like all the pieces of it, right? The community feedback, the self-reflection, I think is a huge part of it. And then our evaluation. And we tried to combine all that into this final summary. I agree with Director Torres, though, that having a third party, we wanted a third party to compile it because we didn't want one of us to eliminate things and, kind of be biased that way. But I feel like the third party did that too, because not a lot of my comments didn't make it. And I think this is a really good opportunity for that coaching and that feedback, and how can we all improve? And we need that as a board. We need to figure out ways we can improve, and we need to give that feedback to the superintendent and how he can improve. And having those 3 pillars of feedback is important, but I think there are things we can do to improve it. We did get a lot of feedback, and a lot of it was good. Some of it was, as we pointed out, was not very constructive. And we hope that in the future, when we ask for feedback, people can give more honest, constructive feedback of how we can improve as a district. I think there was a piece missing too, of more of the direct reports feedback too. I think doing this on the first year is really hard, because he was only in it for 6 or 7 months, in the job for 6 or 7 months. And it's like, I don't know yet. We haven't seen that yet. Like, we haven't gone through a budget cycle yet. How can I, so I think next year will be a little smoother, and we can make improvements to the process and have it be what a good evaluation tool is feedback. So.
Thank you. I would echo some of these comments, and I think that this was a big shift for our district in terms of the evaluation process, in terms of committing to annually evaluating our superintendent and providing specific feedback related to the role, which is linked in the memo. I think that it is a very important tool, both for us as a board, but also for our superintendent as a leader, and that the self-reflection was equally, if not more important, because it was impressive the amount of time and energy that went into that, and the thought and care that went into that. And to be able to read that and see that some of the things that we were thinking were being thought about as well was important for me. Regarding the survey, I think that there is, work to be done when we revisit this and think about how we put it back out next year. I think that it's important to be as open to the community as possible. I also think that unfortunately this year, it was used as a space where people could anonymously spew really hateful and racist remarks, and no one should be subjected to that. And so I think that there's some work to do there on figuring out how we can better target the survey to ensure that people who we want to complete it, while also maintaining that it's open and that we are receiving constructive feedback on our leader. So I definitely think there's work to be done. One of the things that our consultant recommended is that we read out the final comments in public. And so if there's no objection by the board, would you like me to do that?
Oh, sure. To read the summary?
To read the summary aloud at a board meeting.
Do we need to read it out loud? Everyone can read it.
Yeah, I think you should.
Well, it's available for anybody to read, so.
I'm fine either way. I think that it's a way to make things clear at a public meeting was the intent, was to be
Kelsey?
as transparent as possible.
I would appreciate if we read it. I think it's important.
Okay. And so this is the summary as summarized.
Before we go there, can we have ours, or are we in our
Yeah, I was going to go there next, but go ahead.
time of our?
Yeah.
I would just, Natalie, one thing I heard from our consultant who compiled the information was that he tried to compile the information, and in his summary, he tried to include things that he saw and heard with multiple voices. And so I think that he was talking that if things were said once, it didn't necessarily make it in that final summary, as opposed to if he heard something more than once, it sort of had its place there. And that could have been the reason why some of those comments that you made weren't in there.
I would also support if the board
No, I
recommended.
appreciate that. And I'm happy to go back in and say, oh yeah, that kind of captures the essence of what I was saying. And again, all of my positive things made it. All the great, because I did have, like, this is really good stuff, but also the things that I thought needed some growth, I think are equally as important. But I'm happy to read through to make sure maybe it was said in a different way, but.
Yeah, and it was obviously very unfortunate that you weren't able to be a
I
part of
know,
that process.
and that's why,
Yeah, I think that was the only way that we could have
Right.
been sure to incorporate
Right.
everyone by using a third party. And, when we're rehashing this and looking back at the process, that might be one of the things we want to think about. And I know it's something that we talked about initially. Is it a board member that compiles? Historically, the board president and vice president have been the only two involved in the creation of the evaluation. So involving the voice from all 5 board members, I think, was a super important step. And so how can we, make this process even better moving forward? Any other comments?
If I may, I'd love to.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I want the public to know, and I share this sentiment with you all when we debrief the evaluation a couple of weeks ago in executive session. First is that the superintendent evaluation tool, as Dr. Stepp mentioned a moment ago, it didn't exist before I got here. And so there was one that existed in the past, but this one specifically was created by this board. And it's something that I advocated for from the very beginning of my hire before I got here, so that there's clarity for me about what the board expects of me. And so that there's clear direction about the things I should focus on. We began it in August, but what she didn't mention is it didn't finish until December. And so between July 1st through December, I've sort of been going at my own direction without having a tool to say, this is what you should focus on. This is what you can do better. And so I just want to make that clear to the public too. And the reason we did it in this cycle is because this is around the time that evaluations happen for leaders across the state. And this now puts us on a cycle for a year from now for there to be a clear 12-month process through this feedback evaluation. So I thought the board did do a good job of saying, this is what's going well and you should continue. And then also I thought there was some clarity there about things that I need to focus on that would most improve the school district. And so I thank y'all for that in executive session. I will say that I do not suggest that feedback come only through the evaluation, and certainly not as a surprise. So I'm actually really curious about what some of the comments that were made that didn't make it to the evaluation, because I haven't heard them in any other form. So just a nudge for you all. I think in our one-on-ones, one of the things that I like to do is ask you all if you have any feedback for me, and would love to hear some of those and those conversations as well.
And just to clarify too, it has been something that we've talked about. I just didn't know if I needed to have it in writing, but I feel like that's something we've already talked about as well.
And one other last thing before we go to the reading, thank you, that I would like to bring up is there was Dr. Rodriguez's self-evaluation and then the board's evaluation of him, and that we marked him continuously higher than
Average.
he marked himself. And I thought his reflections were very deep and understanding of room for improvement. And I appreciated that humbleness and room for growth way that he self-evaluated.
Any final comments? Okay, I'm gonna follow the directions of our consultant and read aloud, and then we will call to vote on the amendment. Dr. Rodriguez hit the ground running last summer and has yet to slow down. We've been impressed with his stamina in the face of a myriad of unexpected challenges and are pleased with the improvement of the district's governance model. This has opened us up to community input and engagement, to a higher level of accountability, and it has pushed our other leaders to assess whether our current models are working for them, our students, and our community. To accomplish that in only his first 8 months would have been a tremendous success, but Dr. Rodriguez has also pushed out our LGBTQ+ toolkit, has overseen the creation of a special education handbook, has coordinated the updates of dozens of policies, and hired a highly effective chief academic officer. We recognize the focus Dr. Rodriguez is placing on increasing academic achievement through the Learning Acceleration Plan and the district and school UIP processes, along with career and college readiness for all students. Dr. Rodriguez is making connections with the community and promoting engagement through the Student Advisory Council, coffee chats, his podcast, attending school events, and more. We feel it's important that he continue to develop trusting relationships throughout the community, along with staff and leadership. We'd like Dr. Rodriguez to continue outreach to community partners to utilize existing resources for district and academic support for students and teachers. As the leader, his collaboration with building leadership and the executive team is crucial for a unified system. To strengthen our efforts towards improved academic performance and career and college readiness for all students, he'll need to pay attention to the needs of teachers, the challenges of families, and the experience of the leadership team to find innovative solutions and sustainable strategies. Dr. Rodriguez has already tremendously impacted our district. We are truly lucky for him to be in our district, working for our students and creating a difference for their lives and families. He has professionalized the role of a superintendent in Roaring Fork. His inclusive and collaborative leadership style, centered around student success, is greatly appreciated. His honesty and intentional commitment to equity will benefit our students for years to come. So thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, and thank you to the board for engaging in this process. Chief Bean, will you call to vote on the amendment?
Yes. Director Stepp,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Klumberg,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Aye.
Director Tyler.
Aye.
Thank you. The next business in order is action on the 22-23 supplemental budget proposal. Is there a motion?
Yes. I move that the board approve the 2022-23 supplemental budget proposal as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
We'll now move into board discussion and we will begin with Director Tyler.
I would just like to say that I appreciate the work that Chief Markham and his staff has put in. I feel it is important that we do have some kind of transparency in a system for parents to be able to look at results and being able to look at data. And so I think that's an important part to include for our community. And I am happy that we are moving forward on the Meadowwood project and that we are creating more staff housing. And I think it's a very important place for us to be moving.
Director Stepp.
Thank you, Chief Markham, for putting this together. I did just have one question about the Meadowwood project. Because I don't think typically we take funds from the general fund to cover capital projects. So with that 1.1 million that we're doing to get that project started, is there going to be another transfer in the future, or like this is just the initial startup cost?
Yeah, so every year you appropriate funds from the general fund to the capital projects fund, which is where we will record expenses related to Meadowwood. It looks like a very exact number because it is. We had money left over from the mill levy override. It was the specific one-time money that we called out on all of our marketing and advertising and promotional materials for the MLO. That was specifically to go towards staff retention and recruiting. So 300,000 of that, roughly 1.5 million, will go to the Education Opportunity Fund. Roughly 83,000 went to provide the professional wage supplement to teachers. That's any teacher earning under 50,000 this year is given a stipend. And the remainder, this 1.143 million is earmarked for Meadowwood housing. And so that's to transfer that exact amount tied to the MLO. We're starting to incur costs around architect, advisors, all the fees that go into a project before you even get it off the ground, and just to make sure we can pay for those.
So when we get the certificates later on to pay for this project, does that get refunded to the general fund, or?
So the certificates themselves will be deposited directly and recorded directly into the capital projects fund. What we will wait to do is we've earmarked $12 million of reserves. So that's money the district already has. We'll wait until it's appropriate to transfer. So there may be multiple times next year where we move money as needed once we deplete that initial 16 million. The reason being is once money's in the capital projects fund, it can't come back out. So if we put all $28 million in there and it costs 25, which I mean, it won't cost, it won't come in $3 million in their budget, no matter how hard I cross my fingers. But in that scenario, like we couldn't pull that 3 million back. It would be there. I mean, we continue to use it down, but it's just a way not to lock up your money in case you ever did need it.
Okay, thank you.
Director Torres.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Director Ramirez.
I want to echo our thanks to Chief Markham on bringing this forward to us. I think that this.
Director Ramirez, can you begin again? Sorry, we didn't get you on.
No worries. I would just wanted to echo our thanks to Chief Markham on his work on this and making sure that we are being not only financially responsible, but doing best practices when it comes to our finances. I also just appreciate this type of presentation of like very clearly saying what everything is going to and how much of an investment we're making in all of the things. So thank you to Chief Markham for making this so easy for us to understand and to have full faith in.
Thank you.
And I would just echo that and say that I'm excited to be approving this tonight. I think this is great to be taking some solid steps towards housing, towards the LAP, and and to Director Ramirez's point, you've broken it down in a way that is so digestible. So that is very much appreciated.
I will say, I realized it had bled onto another sheet. I relinked that earlier tonight, because it was not as easy to read because the totals were off, but it's all there now, clear and easier to understand.
So board will move into 5 minutes of discussion. If anyone has anything additional to add.
I don't, sort of roundabout, so it's not exactly related to our budget but one of the budgeted items. I would just like us, as it said, that $170,000 for the high dosage tutoring. And the plan is to expand tutoring next year. I hope as we look at planning to expand that tutoring, if we can look at any possibilities of going beyond a online platform for that, and that if we can see a way to incorporate face-to-face tutoring.
Any other discussion?
I just have a quick comment with the 550 going to the LAP. I'm glad that it says it's a pilot kind of startup. Again, for transparency and for people to understand that each school does their own improvement plan, and those improvement plans inform the district improvement plan. And this LAP came from that improvement plan. And so I like that we're not spending all of it at once and just kind of throwing money at the issues that we have, but we're trying some things out, and then we can see if it's going to work or not, or what else we need, or how it can change. And I think, we heard some comments tonight about, we don't need this, is what we need. But all of these things came from the building leaders for what they thought they needed. So if teachers have concerns, please bring that up to your building leadership so that can come up to the leadership team, so we can measure and monitor these pilot programs and then adjust as needed. So I really appreciate the way that we're approaching this. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Stepp. Any other comments? Director Ramirez?
Yeah, I just want to add that I also appreciated seeing the investment to the data dashboard. I think, as we talked about transparency tonight, I really think that this tool is going to be helpful for all of us. So I just wanted to echo that I appreciate that we are, not just investing in making sure that we have transparency moving forward with our data, but also that, we've been very thoughtful on how we're going to spend our money. So thank you to our team.
Any other comments? Discussion? Thank you again, Chief Markham. Chief Bean, will you call the vote?
Aye.
I can't hear audio, but if I'm on speaker, yes, aye.
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 I've been gently nudged and let know that if the board would prefer to move policy reads to our next meeting, in light of the time tonight, that staff is not opposed. So I would make a motion to amend our agenda to move item 13, subsections A, finance policies, B, health policies, to our next meeting agenda on April 12th, 2023.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 So we will move forward, and the next business in order is board reports and comments. Thanks, Chief Markham. And we will begin tonight with Director Ramirez, if we can get her back on.
I hope you guys can hear me. Okay. I guess my only board comment would be that I would be in favor of us bringing a resolution sooner rather than later on board compensation. I think that it's necessary for us to consider that as we are getting ready to have an election year. There's three of us that will have to be having these conversations in our districts. And, I know that in the past with George, our consultant, we talked about possibly creating a system where we could help future interested parties on the board. And I think this would be useful for us as we move forward and we continue to get a direction and maintain professionalized board members in this space. And so I would appreciate if that is something that we can eventually come to and make sure that we can do before this board leaves office. That's all I have.
Thank you. Director Tytler.
I would just like to talk about the Meadowood housing and that we're hoping that by the end of the month, there'll be final drawings and final bids given. And that we're hoping that come June 1st, we might have a start date for construction, fingers crossed. Everything seems to be going well with our company that we're working with, FCI. And it seems like plans are moving forward. As of this time, it seems like costs are maybe remaining in a place that we would like them to be. And that we're hoping that our big step is still trying to get our final approval by the town, which has been a difficult step because the town doesn't have a town planner for doing those approvals right now. And if we get into doing it by the state, it's a long queue in the state. And so we're hoping that the town allows us to figure out a way to get that final approval, which will allow us to hopefully be breaking ground in early June.
Thank you. Director Stepp.
Just a FYI, I'm continuing to work with Ben Bonfock from the district on the CTE planning pathways. And we're working closely with Youth Entity. And on Tuesday at Glenwood Springs High School is the annual career expo, which Youth Entity has taken over from Glenx. And thank you to Glenwood Springs High School for hosting all the high schools in the valley from Aspen, Basalt, Roaring Fork, Bridges, Glenwood, and Yampa, and all the businesses that are coming out to support our students and helping them learn more about different career pathways and opportunities. So looking forward to doing that.
Director Torres.
I have nothing to report.
Kind of just a comment and a public plug. First, I would agree with Director Ramirez that I would hope that we could get a resolution sooner rather than later. So as our three current board members are making determinations on whether or not they are willing to throw their hats back in the ring, and as members of the public are considering whether or not to run for this position, this board, as it's currently situated, has taken a position on compensation. And to reiterate my previous position, I think from a standpoint of wanting this to be accessible to more members of the public and to a broader variety of members, I think compensation to offset costs incurred is important. My other update or plug is that the town of Basalt has put out an RFP for the space across from Basalt High, which was originally set aside for early childhood, and they've included youth centers in that RFP. And so I think that it could be a real benefit to our students if someone were to step in, and that is an active RFP with the town of Basalt for the space across from Basalt High. And I did get a copy of it on the mailing list. So if anybody wants it, please reach out. But that's, I mean, my other report would have been IVB, and I think we've covered that. So we will now move on to our final agenda item, appreciations, and we will begin with Director Tyler.
I would like to appreciate our teachers, knowing that this is the week in which they're meeting with parents and all the time that that takes to have those meetings, and how it's beyond their regular school day. And so I want to say thank you for the extra time. I want to say also thank you to the teachers for the extra time in their communication that they've given us over this past week, with lots of lengthy emails that obviously took a lot of time and thought to write. And I recognize the work that you do every day, a difficult job with many facets to it. And I just want to make sure this discussion that we have been having isn't to exclude you in any sense, or to diminish the important work that you do on a daily basis. And I want to recognize that you are heard, and you are seen, and you are valued.
Thank you. Director Stepp.
I want to call out again Ben Bonfalk. He had a meeting this past week where he brought, I think it was 5 school districts, a few chambers, the Workforce Center, and several other partners together, which is not an easy task. And he's kind of this galvanizing energy around this notion of work-based learning and how that can work in our region. And he's just doing a phenomenal job. So thank you, Ben.
Director Torres.
I would like to thank, and is it Jeannie? Jean and Lori, both of you are still here tonight, and I want to say thank you. It takes courage to stand in front of people and to speak and to share your feedback and your thoughts and your opinions. And I really appreciated the professional and the respect, the really thoughtfulness that you put in. So thank you, and thank you for staying, for everybody for staying here tonight to the very end. Thank you. I again. Absolutely. Whether it is a room full of people or a few people, your voice is heard, and we really appreciate that you came here tonight. So thank you.
Director Ramirez.
Thanks. I want to appreciate our superintendent, Dr. Rodriguez, for being here, for being part of our district, for saying yes to leading and being at the helm. I know that this board knows firsthand that it hasn't been easy for you, and we appreciate so much that you've continuously made an effort to always center our students. And I want to read this feedback we received that actually I hope all of our board has read, but it came from a sophomore at my alma mater, because I graduated from Glenwood Springs High School. And the student just blew my mind with her words, and I wanted to make sure we highlighted her tonight. Propaganda and misinformation, the drivers of hate. And when misinformation is used to fuel propaganda, progress can never be made. The misinformation that has caused the public to turn on once respected superintendent is uncanny. I urge the public to weed through the massive falsified information put out by commenters online and see the real work Dr. Rodriguez and his team are doing. I am a sophomore at Glenwood Springs High School. I've been working with him for the past months in meetings with students interested in voicing their concerns and seeking action. Myself and other students, given the opportunity to inflict change, are grateful for his attentiveness and willingness to work with students directly affected by issues in our school system. Dr. Rodriguez has a deep understanding of the tangible and real problems like racism, sexism, and homophobia that cause daily hardships for students. He creates a safe space for myself and fellow students to voice opinions that most adults don't give attention to. Problems are heard and action is taken. I only hope that people take the time to learn what the superintendent and his team are doing behind the scenes to eradicate disconnect with the community and spearhead progressive change. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Ramirez. That one's hard to follow. I appreciate that student taking the time to reach out and share those comments. That's a brave thing to do, and those words are very powerful and meaningful. My appreciation and thanks this evening. I wanted to go back out to IBB and also specifically the team that is assembling to tackle the creation of a master agreement. I know I said it earlier, but I really feel that it's a huge step for the district to have that agreement in place with teachers so that teachers have a solid understanding and expectations that are enforceable. The current system, I think the process was great, but I think what we've discovered was the product was not something that there was a commitment from the Board of Ed to. And so a lot of work was done on creation of policies with no real ability to ensure that those were protected. So I am appreciative because I know it's going to be a huge amount of work. And I think having teachers that are willing to sit on that and undertake it is a massive effort. And I think they understand what they're getting into and they're willing to take it on because they understand how important it is. So special thanks to that group. If there's no further business and there's no objection, the meeting will be adjourned. It is 9:43 p.m.
Thank you.